Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories podcast. I'm your host, Sean DeLynn. It's August 23rd, 2024, and today we have for you a Brazilian Mormon story. Today we are interviewing Marcelo and Sandra Ribeiro. Is that right? Did I get it? More, más o menos?
Yes.
How do you guys say it?
In Portuguese, say Ribeiro.
Ribeiro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And they are the co-hosts of a YouTube channel called
Mormonismo sem censura.
Which is?
Uncensored Mormonism.
And what it's about. What's it about?
It's about mostly telling the story, the history that the church doesn't want us to know. And we also do some interviews, heavily inspired on your show.
So it's kind of like a Brazilian Mormon Stories, basically.
Of sorts, yeah.
Fun. Mm-hmm. Got like 70 plus episodes. Is
Correct,
that right?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But most importantly, this is just, I don't know if folks know this, but Brazil is in the top 3 in the world, top 3 countries for the most number of Mormons of record. Now, how many active Mormons? It's probably still top 3.
Probably, yeah.
But it's, it's one of the 3 largest Mormon populated countries in the world. So, but as you were saying, Sandra, earlier, it's not just about Brazilians. It's just about converts to the Mormon church from countries outside the United States.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have so many of them.
Yeah. So today we're going to be just doing a traditional 3-ish hour Mormon story. And we always like to begin with intentions. So do each of you just kind of want to share why you wanted to do this interview? Maybe Sandra, you can go first.
Yeah. Sorry. So the reason we are here and sharing our story with you guys is because we have so many members of the church that convert to it as an adult and become like very faithful to it, do everything, like playing by the book, doing everything. And one day we discovered that the church is not what it says it is a struggle, and people need they need support. Like they need a place, a safe place to share their stories and see that they're not alone with this. So I think the main reason is like to say for those people that is once was a member of the church or no longer believe in the church and is a struggle thinking they are alone. They're not alone. We are here. And we have this channel in Portuguese because we know not only Brazilians, but people all over the globe that has the same story. We also have a lot of Brazilians here in Utah that no longer believe and still think they are alone.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of humans, Mormons, but Brazilians who are Mormon who don't know all the facts because the church has not been honest with its history. Mm-hmm. And that's another probably part of your motivation. How about you, Marcelo?
For me, John, I think we have a story that's a little bit out of the norm of what your show usually have, right? Because we are converts, we convert as adults, and we're in a different environment outside of Utah and the U.S., and your show was such a lifeline for us in the beginning of our transition. And just seeing people sharing their stories, you don't resonate with the entire story, but there's one point here and there, okay, I understand that. I feel like they do. And, that it's similar to my experience. So I think just adding a different story, adding to the diversity pool, I guess.
Yeah. No, in a very meaningful way, every story that gets told reaches an important audience that it needs to reach.
Yeah.
And especially when we do a country like Brazil, it's going to reach a bunch of Brazilians that would not be reached otherwise, but also Latinos and again,
yes.
people from all over the world. Mm-hmm. So I'm thrilled you're here. Thanks for coming. Let's jump in. Yeah. So who wants to tell how their Mormon story began first? And we'll go back and forth yes. until your stories merge, and then we'll have you tell the story together. So who wants to go first? Marcelo?
I can
Okay.
start, yeah.
Okay.
So speaking a little bit of my childhood, right? Because I baptized in the church when I was 18. So till then, I didn't have any contact with the church. But I think there are points in my childhood that will play a role later, right? So I had a pretty normal childhood for a Brazilian, right? I was raised in a Catholic family, what we call a non-practicing Catholic, right? Just by name, but I remember being to a Catholic mass maybe 2-3 times in my life, and I would always like almost pass out because we would always get there late, and there were no more seats on the pews, and I had to stand up. And I used to have a little bit of a heart issue when I was younger, that I couldn't stand up for too long. My blood pressure would go down. Anyway, so I never really even watched the whole mass in my life. Right? I've been to a couple of baptisms and things like that, but really not non-practicing. But that was the formation of my beliefs in God. Right? That was my view of God growing up. Right? So my family was from the northeast of the country. A big city called Fortaleza. But then they married and they moved down to another city, like 3 days drive distance. I think it's 2,500 miles distance in the state of São Paulo, a city called Santos, which is the biggest port in Latin America. It used to be, at least. I don't know if it still is. But a big, decent-sized city, right? And but I grew up away from my extended family, right? So really it was just my parents and me and my brother growing up. So did well in school. I was actually I was thinking about this when we were driving here. I actually skipped 1 year of school because in Brazil you typically go to preschool for a couple years. Well, 1 year and then kindergarten, equivalent to kindergarten, and then you start in first grade. And so I did that first preschool year, and I was doing great, and I was loving it. And then when the next year school was about to start, and I asked my parents, so what am I going to do there? And, the same school. Oh, you're going to do the same things, activities and coloring and, kid stuff. I was like, no, I want to learn how to read and write. I don't want to do that again. And funny because, I started first grade when I was 6 then, right, 1 year early. And the public system wouldn't take me because they were afraid I wouldn't keep up. So I had to go to a private school for a few months to prove that I could keep up, right? And then once they saw that I could, then I got sent back to the public system, which is kind of funny. In Brazil, you typically don't want your kids to go to public school if you can't afford a private school, just because of quality, right? So, and funny thing is that was the first time in my life that the desire to learn English showed up, right? Someone came and made a advertisement to the students, right, about English school, and we took flyer home to show our parents, and we were supposed to bring the next day the authorization to start the course or anything, which would be paid. And my parents were poor; they couldn't afford the private school I was going to in the first place. I was going just because I needed to show that I could, right, keep up. And I remember my mom saying, you don't even know Portuguese yet. Why do you want to learn English? But that was at 5 years old or 6. Yeah. First time, I want to learn English. I think it's cool to know another language, right? Yeah. And that will play a role later in my life, right? So, so normal Catholic kid, kind of smart, maybe for that time, wanting to learn. I always had this desire to learn and to achieve and to do things, right?
Yeah. So it seems like there was some family turmoil that led you to kind of consider Mormonism. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, that would be later, right, in my teenage years. Yeah. So my family situation, right? My father, kind of an abusive father, not very physically abusive, but like very demanding, right? And my mom, very submissive, right? So her functioning life was to fulfill his desires, right? Keep the house clean and everything in order and everything. He wasn't very present in my life. And then he got to a point where, so he would drink a lot, and he had other women that he would see. And at one point, my mom found out about it, right? And they had this big fight, big marital crisis, and they decided to go back to the Northeast where they were from, right? And at that point, I was 17. I was able to finish high school in that place where I considered my home. I was born there and grew up there. You know, the other place is vacation place. It's not my home, right? So we go back to Fortaleza, and really that was devastating for me. I remember we drove all that distance, so 3 days on the road, and I cried the 3 days going back. I was so upset because 17 years old, my first love, so I was dating this girl that I really loved, and she actually pops up in my story later. Friend, so it was, you know, top of the world, and now it all gets pulled from underneath my feet, and I go to this other town, other city that I don't like. It's super hot. So, you know, my family situation was a mess.
Sounds like prime missionary material.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Then I started making friends in this new place. My parents are very, very absent at that point. So we were living in an apartment that was my uncle's, my father's brother apartment. So he rented it to us. And my grandma on my mom's side had passed away a few years back. So my parents were renovating grandma's house so we could move in there, right? But meanwhile, and that took months. And during that time, they were working their relationship, trying to fix things, very self-involved. And me and my brother, I was 17 at that point. My brother was 14. And we were basically living by ourselves, right? For, you know, it would go days without our parents showing up in the house.
Yeah.
So we started making friends, and the very first time I saw the missionaries was on a bus, right? I was going downtown, and I saw a couple white American dudes, you know, white shirts, neckties, speaking in English. I was like, oh, those are embassy employees, maybe. I don't think embassy employees would ride a bus in that city. But anyway, a few months later, the cousin of a friend of mine came back from her mission and went to spend a few days with this cousin that was my friend. And she introduced all of us to the church, right? We were a group of friends. We were always hanging out together, doing things together, going to the beach and whatnot. So the missionaries came and taught all of us, and I think like more than 10 of us, all baptized within a month. So I remember participating in the missionary discussions, and some of my friends were very touched, right, in a very strong way, would cry and feel the Spirit very strongly. I never had that experience, and for the longest time, that really frustrated me and made me feel less than, right, the others. Why can't I feel the Spirit that way? And then what the missionaries told me, and what my patriarchal blessing actually helped me understand at that time, was, and it was very interesting because my patriarchal blessing says that I studied all these things before coming to earth, right? And it was, that's how I felt when the missionaries were teaching me, right? I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's almost like I'm just remembering something that I knew before. So that was very interesting.
So the theology of us living, the Mormon theology of us living as spirits before we came to this earth resonated with you.
Correct.
The plan of salvation. Is
Correct.
that right?
Yes.
Yeah. What else were some of the top three teachings that the missionaries taught that you really loved? Or was it more social, or was it both social and the teachings?
As far as the teachings, John, I think something that really was interesting for me was, well, yeah, the whole, our timeline as spirits and coming to earth and then receiving a reward based on our behavior and what we did here, right? And I think meritocracy, right, and the plan of salvation made total sense to me. And it's very interesting. One thing is that I firmly believed in reincarnation, right? And I remember just weeks before the missionaries came, having this debate with friends, just, down at the, on a bench there in the park, just chatting and talking about this. And I'm like very authoritatively saying, there's gotta be reincarnation. How else could you explain that people are born rich and some are poor, some are born with illness, some die early, some live forever, if it's not, the result of something they did before? How is it fair that not everybody start at the same point in this life, right? And then reincarnation is what explained that. And I was like, there's no way, that's the only explanation. When the missionaries taught me the plan of salvation, all that stuff, and they gave a different version, but in their explanation, everybody started at the same starting point. So that made sense. That's fair, right? And we're going to talk here in our story, being fair and trying to be at least fair. It's a big deal for me, right? And that plays a role in my whole life and in my Mormon story as well. So so that made sense, right? And my family was a mess at that point. So the church came in and gave me structure, gave me role models, gave me goals in life, right? So I finished high school and we went to this city where I hated, and I spent I wasted a year of my life. I didn't go to college. I didn't even think about it. I don't want to do anything. I just want to be mad about my life. And then the church came and put everything in order, and that's how I started moving forward again. So that was important at that point.
Okay, and so that makes perfect sense, and it almost sounds like the church was a good thing in your life at that point in time. Is that fair to say?
Definitely was, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you got baptized.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a tough decision? Were your parents happy? Were they sad? Do you want to talk about the actual baptism?
Yeah, of course. So my parents didn't care much. Again, they were so self-involved. They didn't attend my baptism, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I remember going there, and there were 20 or 25 people that I'd never seen before, except for the missionaries and my friend, the one that introduced me to the church. And actually, as I said, right, a group of friends were all baptized one after the other. And the day I baptized, my brother and my best friend at the time, who was kind of the leader of the gang of friends, right? He was going to baptize too, but he had some more serious sins that he needed either area presidency or first presidency approval to baptize, right? And so he had to reschedule. And I was like, oh, that changes a lot. And I really thought about, postponing mine too. Because, I had been talking about church for 2 weeks. That was it. I've been to church a couple times. I don't know anything about this church, right? But it just felt good. Did not have a testimony. And later I had to really fight and find one.
So when you got baptized, you would say you didn't have a testimony.
Oh, definitely not. I had the good feelings, right? The missionaries identify as the Spirit. But no, I had a calling right after. We can talk about in a minute as a world mission leader.
That's so weird, because as someone who's a brand new member who isn't sure they totally have a testimony, the first calling you get is to be in charge for the ward or congregation of converting other people to the church. It's actually brilliant of the church to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Don't you think?
I'll tell you in a second.
Yeah.
But the baptism, I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but I have a very strong thing with me. If I give you my word, John, I will not break it unless I really can't do it, right? For some real serious reason. And I gave the missionaries my word that I was going to baptize that day, June 12, 1994. And I'm doing it. It doesn't matter who else is not doing, right? So me and my brother baptized that day. And it was magical, really. Being lowered in the water there wasn't just a dive, a normal dive. I felt different. The whole emotional thing, right? I'm finally finding a tribe, right, where I was completely lost for a year. And these are good people. It's going to change my life. It's going to be good, right? So that today I understand that, but back then I was like, that was the Spirit.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so I baptized, and like 2 weeks after, I think, I get called World Mission Leader. So I'm in charge of a group. I think we had something like 6 or 8 world missionaries. Some were returned missionaries. And I was like, what am I going to teach these people? And I'm going with the missionaries, visiting people that they are teaching, and I'm supposed to bear my testimony. And I'm like, I don't have one. You know, all I could say was like, church is great. I love it. I feel good about it. But again, you know, fairness and honesty are so big for me. I was like, I have to find a testimony. I have to have one.
Can I ask about that?
Sure.
So the Book of Mormon, did you read it before getting baptized or during this time? And the narrative of the Lamanites and you know, the Nephites and the Lehites coming to America as Jews from the old world, and the whole Book of Mormon narrative about the Nephites and the Lamanites getting dark skin and the curse. Was that at all part of your study, conversion, or those early struggles to get a testimony? Or were you just not even aware of that stuff?
Well, I read the parts that the missionaries marked on the book, right,
Yeah.
just as part of the discussions, and felt good about it and all that. I don't remember the whole curse thing coming to the front of my mind. I was just reading like, yeah, I guess that's what it happened, right? But I did buy that, like, that's the truth. That's a historical, you know, story, right?
And so how did you tie that to your own history? Did you think, I'm a descendant of the Lamanites and the Nephites, or not?
No, not really. Again, in Brazil, we are so mixed. It's actually hard to find a real like black looking person, because we over the centuries we mixed up so much. We all brown, right?
Portuguese, natives,
just different shades of brown. So at least for me, there are racist people in Brazil for sure, but for me it was like not even part of my psyche.
You didn't think of yourself as a Lamanite?
No.
Wow,
No,
that's
never.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sandra, you're also shaking your head.
Yeah,
No.
in Brazil we don't talk about that, like seen as as Lamanites. No.
That's weird, because seems like all the other Latin American countries do call themselves Lamanites. I didn't know Brazil didn't think of themselves that way.
Yeah.
But
Like this part of like race in Brazil, for example, people will consider Marcelo white.
okay.
Yeah. So it's hard to like, yeah.
Yeah, because
It's
if
hard to
Lamanites are
explain.
dark-skinned, then you wouldn't identify as dark-skinned, so you wouldn't identify as a Lamanite. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like dark skin is black.
Yeah.
Black.
Okay, in Brazil.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, got
Yeah.
it. Okay. That's good. Okay, so ward mission leader.
Right. And then I'm like, I need to have a testimony. I cannot say I have without having it, because that's dishonest, right? So I couldn't do it. So I started my struggle, right, to have a testimony. So I would pray and
I just
talk.
want to know, this is after your baptism, not before.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
After, yes.
I'll get baptized, then try and get a testimony.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So I'm talking with the missionaries who taught me and asking for their help and all that, right? And I'm like, and they're trying to convince me, right? All those feelings you had during the discussions and the feelings you had during your baptism, all those subtle things, right? That's your testimony. That's what the church teaches, right? You don't need a lightning striking you or anything like that, or a vision or anything. And I remember one day the missionaries came, and we. So again, we are in the apartment alone. My parents are doing their thing and renovating the other house and all that. And we talked, and the missionaries decided, let's kneel down and pray one at a time. So one missionary did, the other one did, and it was the last one. And I finished that, and I felt a goosebump or something. But I'm like, no, I don't want it to be my brain playing tricks with me. I want something that I cannot explain otherwise. And I myself, right, no, that was not it, right? But then the missionaries are going out, and, one of them hold my hand, and he says something like, I can't remember the words now, but he said something like, it will come. And the at the time of the Lord, it will come. And I felt something so strong at that moment, just internal, right? And I was like, and then they left. I didn't say anything, but then internally, I was just like, that's it. I can't explain that feeling, right, that I had. And I think it was, the Lord talking to me through that missionary. And there you go. For years, that was my initial testimony. And everything else was just like always feeling good about things, And it's like my patriarchal blessing said, right? I studied these things. So it's just like remembering. So it's nothing too drastic for me. It never was, right? And the church convinced me that, yeah, that's also a testimony, right? And then, and it's funny, Sandra will tell her how she obtained her testimony, right? And forever, when she would tell me how she had her testimony, I was like, that's weak, right? That's not really a testimony. And for me, like, mine was like it.
Why are you so judgy, Sandra?
Because, it doesn't look like a real testimony.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah. But we only find out very much later when we're talking about this, and we're like, you know what? Every time we told and we're telling each other, I never thought your testimony was that strong.
Oh, okay.
The experience, right, was
Yeah.
like, you could call that experience a testimony. But
Yeah. Well, how influential was it that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was located in the United States and that these missionaries were Americans? Is that a form of influence to a Brazilian, at least in your experience, or not? Is it a positive thing? Is it a neutral thing? Is it a negative thing?
I think you could say it's a positive thing for the church. It helps to get converts for sure, because it's an exotic aspect of it, right? Everybody in Brazil has some sort of English in high school, for example, right? But it's just like here, you end high school here, how much Spanish you really know, right? It's in Brazil, it's similar with English. Like, yeah, I had English, but I don't really speak it, right? But there is that thing, that's so cool, right? I speak English. You would be walking down as missionaries down the street and, kids running around, hey, speak English, right? So it brings that exotic aspect for sure. And for me in particular, remember when I was 6, that's when I wanted to learn English.
Yeah.
Right? So like, oh yeah, that's cool. I want to.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. All right. Well, let's jump to Sandra and let's talk about your conversion. Is that all right?
Okay.
All right, go for it.
So in my case, I grew up in this Catholic family. All my family are Catholic. And I grew up in this small city that I could say that 95% of the population are Catholic and also very conservative. And then my parents, even though they're not like so strict with the church, they was really light about it. They make sure all their kids fulfill their faith covenants, right? Like baptism and first communion and what else? The other one is like confirmation. I did all of that. All my siblings did that. Went to the church. I one of us that was really active in a church. I participate with the kids group. We called crusades, little crusades. I participate in youth choir. I consider like I was pretty active in the church, Catholic Church, and then I had before met the missionaries and the church. I already have all this concept of like Noah's Ark and Adam and Eve, and then all those stories, right? My parents and the church taught me. I already have this conception, right, about chastity, that sex is just for couples. They are marriage. That's it. So when church came with this, wasn't like something new. It was like, okay, I already know about it. And then, so patriarchy, I was like I believed all of that. That was the right way that life's supposed to be. Like I will grow up and then I will find a guy, that I'll marry him, have kids, family. Life as it is.
Are Brazilian women who are married generally stay-at-home moms, or do, in general, both husbands and wives have jobs when they have kids? Is there a way to even...
In general, both works.
Okay.
Yeah, in general. But like where I used to live as a kid, I would say that the majority was like home mom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's what you were thinking.
Oh, yeah. I grew up with this concept,
Okay,
right?
got it.
However, then when I was 16, my parents sent me to live with my cousins, and in a big city, like the capital of the states. It's the biggest city in the states.
What's it
and then
called?
I'm from Ceará, Brazil, and then I was born in this small city that's called Varjota, and I was sent to live in Fortaleza for a better education. And then I finished my high school there, and then go to college. And then I was the first kid in my family to go to college.
Congrats.
Yes, thank you. But during the time, my 16, and then I met the church, the missionary, and then when I kind of stopped going to the church and practice there the beliefs, I didn't have opportunity. And when I was living there, and then when I visit my parents, I went sometimes, like nah, and it wasn't a big deal. I didn't feel that not going to church, is a sin or I'm doing something bad. No, I just not going to church, but I was like doing everything. I was good to my peers. I was fine.
Yeah.
Right? I was fine. Okay, then the church entered to my life when I was in my early 20s.
Mormon church.
Mormon church.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
When I was in my early 20s, when I left my cousin's house to live by myself, I found this lady that rents room in her house for adults. Single adults. And then she was a member of the church. And it was the first thing she said, that like her rules. She said, I am Mormon. And they are proud to say that they are Mormon at that time.
How do you say Mormon in Portuguese?
Mormon.
Okay.
And then she said, I am Mormon. And then I am Christian. And then the only rule I have is if you have a boyfriend, you cannot sleep with him at my house. And that time I did have a boyfriend. It was a relationship, like long relationship, I would say. I was like 2.5 years relationship with him. And then I would say my first love. The first person I loved. That better say like that. And was great. I respect her religion and found the missionaries come back and forth sometimes for lunch because in Brazil, missionaries go for lunch and at the member's house.
Right.
And then I have some contact with these missionaries at that time. But yes, I already been educated about, like Marcelo didn't have much contact. I did. I already have some questions in my head about, things that I don't believe. I never liked, for example, confession. So when I was like maybe 9 years old, I was get ready for like First Communion. And then we supposed to confess our sins.
To the priest.
Yeah. And then I didn't know what to say. But I supposed to confess something. I remember thinking in my head, what have I done that could be a sin, right, to confess? And then, I don't know, I think I said like I was mean with my brother, you know? And then the priest says, okay, 3 Marys, like, you know, 3 Marys prayer, 3 Fathers prayer. And then I was like, make no sense. How he knows God will be satisfied with this. And he really forgive me for that.
Right.
So I never confess. I think I had to confess one more time to do the confirmation when I was 15. Yeah. And that's it. I never, ever confessed other than that because I didn't believe.
Yeah, okay. So what made you interested in the Mormon church and made you want to get baptized?
That's a good question because it was in a time of my life that I was in a big mess. I don't know if I have a better word for that. So I already had received some missionaries lessons with 2 missionaries, sisters, with 2 sisters that I love them. They're amazing. And I liked it. Well, they taught me about the church. I think, it's great. Okay, you said Joseph Smith, this guy is a prophet. Yeah, okay, right? And then I went to the church, great church, great. But I was like dating. I was like so interested in participating. Then a year later, I broke up with this boyfriend. It was dramatic, I could say. I was betrayed. I felt bad. I was feeling really, really low, not wanted.
Yeah.
Not wanted. Mm-hmm. And I was living in this big city by myself, no friends, because at that time, my friends was his friends.
Right.
And then I learned that I didn't have friends. My family was like far away.
Yeah.
And then church came in. The missionaries came.
Yeah.
And then they started to invite me, come to the church, and then come for this activity. And that was nice because it was Saturday afternoon. The young adult got together to play volleyball at the church. And then I was so welcome. So welcome.
I mean, I'm so torn. For both of you, it's almost an identical thing.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you could look at it positively and say, the Mormon church was there for both of you when life got really hard and made things better. Mm-hmm. Gave you friends, gave you community, gave you meaning, gave you purpose, gave you morality, gave you structure. You could look at it that way. Or you could look at it like the Mormon church preys upon people when they're in a really vulnerable situation and takes advantage by targeting you when you're down and out, when you're at your lowest.
Yeah.
It's almost like both are true.
This is why, yeah.
The thing is that the whole help, you're right. It came in a great moment, was important. The thing is that it has a price, which you're not told up front.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the price increases as you go. Mm-hmm. And it's like boiling the frog, right? You don't feel it, but you're paying higher and higher and higher of a price.
Yeah.
And getting, in our case at least, less and less back.
Yeah.
Right? And
we'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you going to say something, Sandra?
Yeah, this is why I said so many people can resonate with this story.
Yeah.
Because church just appeared in a time that they need.
Yeah.
At that time, the church was everything I need.
Yeah.
I trust like Christians, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Christians are good people.
Yeah.
And then I was living with this lady for a year more. And even though she wasn't a good role model.
Yeah.
But, the missionaries is amazing always. They are like great people. I really like them. And then they came and said, hey, we have this true church. And that right there was like, why true church. They're Christian, right? So it's another Christian church. For me, it was just another Christian church.
Right.
But I had to, one thing that I had to believe that was this one true church. I was really like questioning with the missionaries, like always he had to prove in the Bible that what they're saying about this church, must to be something in the Bible, because the Bible was the only book I would believe. And they make a way to show me whatever they are teaching has in the Bible.
Yeah. Because Joseph Smith loved the Bible.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. All right. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, what I would say, like, that time, I didn't have a testimony as well when I decided to be baptized. What I had was a, like, critical thinking, like, say, okay, I have this church offer me a place. They are great Christians. They have, direction, instruction. And then I need a community. I need friends.
Yeah.
And that they offer me all of that. Instantly. When I baptized, I had a community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most conversions to Mormonism are social, I think. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's
social
no way,
conversions.
especially in a high-paced baptism environment like Brazil is and so many other countries, right?
Yeah.
I understand, like in Europe, you take months, right, in other places. But in Brazil, like you're challenged in the first discussion.
To get baptized.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do that, but I remember in my mission, we were encouraged to do that. I struggled during doing that. I always struggled with the salesman aspect of, the missionary field and throughout my church story, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you're in that fast pace, you're baptizing in 1 week, 2 weeks, there's no way you have a testimony.
Yeah.
Right?
And but you do have feelings, and the missionaries tell you what your feelings mean. If you have good feelings, they'll say, what? Those feelings are what?
Oh, the Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Holy Ghost, right?
The Holy Ghost, exactly. Yeah.
How do you say Holy Ghost in Portuguese?
Espírito Santo.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have good feelings, that's God saying be Mormon, right?
Yeah. As little as they may be, right? I just felt you smiled. The missionary was funny. That's the Spirit, the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, there's no other possible interpretation of your feelings.
No way.
Other than that the Mormon church is the true church. Yeah.
Yes.
And when they are teaching us, they suggest us, like, pay attention when you go to church, when we listen, the speakers in the pulpit, and the lessons when we are like in a class. So pay attention. Maybe the Spirit will talk to you. And then really, we do that. We try to pay attention. At least me, right? Paying attention. What is my feeling? Yeah.
Power of suggestion is strong with those.
Oh, yeah. And then what I felt good. Yeah, I felt good. But I never thought it was a testimony. Because for me, a testimony is not only a feeling. Must be something that do not leave me questions.
Yeah.
It's for real. So my good feelings was a good feelings.
So how long did it take you to get a testimony, Sandra?
I would say at least almost 5 years.
5 years. Okay.
It wasn't until I came in, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
that is for later.
So did either of you serve missions?
Marcelo served mission. I didn't.
Okay. So Marcelo served. Okay. So you got baptized, and it was a positive thing for you at the time.
For me, it was a really positive thing
Okay.
because brought me what I need at that time.
Yeah.
It was great people.
Yeah.
Right, activities. And church in Brazil does a lot of activities. They want to make sure that the youth stick to them. They need these people.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Makes
And then I was one of them. Games and they did like Olympics, right? The how can I say, Marcelo? Friends,
Olympic Games.
Yeah, friends. We in Portuguese we call the Olimpíadas dos Amigos. I don't remember.
Friends games.
Friends games.
Yeah.
And then they did the
Friend
Olympics.
Friend Olympics, yeah.
Yeah, Friend Olympics, something like that.
How many years between your baptism, Sandra, and meeting Marcelo? How many years was that?
Okay, I was baptized 1995. I met Marcelo 2000.
So 5 years.
5 years.
5 years. Okay. Okay. Just for the sake of time, maybe the next thing we can do. So you did serve a mission.
I did.
Should we talk about that really quick?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. So like, did you ever think you would be serving a mission in your 20s? And what was that like?
Oh, from the moment I got in the church, like I'm doing it.
Okay.
Right? Not because I was super excited about it. It's just because that's what the Lord wants.
Okay.
And I'm like, once I buy into something, I am all in.
Okay.
110%.
All right.
So yeah, I'm going on a mission. It took a while for my life to, fall in place. I studied and I got a really good job with the federal government in Brazil.
Oh.
And then I started studying to get into college, right? So I got a good job before I had even started college.
Okay.
I kind of reversed things a little bit. Then I started college. So there were a couple things at play there, right? So at the job I was, if I worked there was a probationary period of 2 years. And after that, you can get unpaid leaves for up to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
That's perfect. I take the leave, go serve a mission, and come back.
Okay.
And then college, you have to do 1 year. Then you can put it on hold, right? For I don't know what the time frame is, how long you can, but it was enough for the mission. So I did that, and it was interesting. During that process, I felt guilty because I'm putting my things, in front of the Lord, ahead of the Lord. And and I'm talking that federal job is like you don't get fired unless you kill someone or punch the president of the country or something like that.
Oh, it's true.
So it's precious.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's a whole industry to prepare people for the test to be admitted to the job. It's not like a regular job application. It's more like you take a test and only the top people that rank in that test get in.
Got it.
Just to give an idea, I aced the test and I was number 10.
Oh, okay.
Right? In the whole country. There were 900 people per position competing for each position. Anyway, so big deal, right? And I'm like, I'm going to quit because I need to go to the mission.
Wow.
And then a friend of mine, luckily, convinced me to, no, you stay for the 2 years, go on a mission, then you come back and you can have a good job. You're going to be able to serve so much better in the church, having a good job. I was like, okay, I can do that. So I waited 2 years, right? And I went in 98, went to the south of Brazil, border with Argentina and Uruguay. And that was a dream come true as far as learning English for me, because like half my time I'm spending with American companions. So I can study English now. My mission president was very good at encouraging Brazilians to learn English. So he imported a ton of dictionaries. He would encourage people to practice English with their companions. So I would ask my companions to record themselves reading the Book of Mormon so I could listen to the tapes and, practice and all that. So my English started with "it come to pass" and, notwithstanding. That was my English. The mission president's wife, because I was a secretary in the mission, so I had a lot of contact with the mission president and the wife. And I asked her to record the Book of Mormon tapes for me and to copy them. But it was such a hassle, and she was like, you know what? Just take the whole set. It's yours.
Oh, nice.
So that's how my English started, right?
These are cassettes of the Book of Mormon being read in English.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember those.
So I didn't have to bother my companions anymore or the...
Anyone out there remember cassettes? They were a thing.
Yeah, they were. So anyway, the mission experience was great,
Did you have a lot of baptisms?
It depends on what you call a lot. You're not supposed to just say the number, right, John? You need to know the names.
Now we can do whatever we want.
Yeah. No, I think I baptized something like 50 people, which was average. It wasn't like amazing, but, compared to other places, it might be a lot, right? But as I said, I struggled a little with the whole salesman put pressure to baptize and, challenge in the first discussion. I couldn't rarely do that, and it was very much against my nature. It's like, no, they don't have enough. They don't have enough information. they can't commit to something yet.
Yeah.
You know, so I struggle with that side. Survived a hurricane in my mission.
I have two quick questions. Is that okay?
Sure.
So I'm reading in Matt Harris's book, Second Class Saints, Black Mormons and the Struggle for Equality. It talks about when the Mormon Church originally sent missionaries to Brazil, it's because there were white people in Brazil, particularly in the southern part of Brazil, because they didn't want to teach people with, quote, any African blood. But there were, I guess, Europeans. Can you just talk quickly? Are there Germans or Portuguese, sort of like European descended people in Brazil, a lot of them?
Yes. And in the South is where you see the least amount of miscegenation, right? The interracial marriage type of thing.
Yeah.
So you see a lot more really white, European-looking people in the South.
So did you teach those people?
Yes, but not the really like the German ones. And the funny thing is that in Brazil, like, you know, how you can, you know, in a lot of places you call Americans gringos, right? In Brazil, we call the European-liking people German, because that's the biggest, you know, number of them that came during World War II, I think. Yeah. So that's how the church started in Brazil. So a lot of saints, the German saints, moved. I don't know if they were Nazis or not, or fleeing the Nazis or whatever it was. But the first meeting, the story I hear is that the first meetings of the church in Brazil were actually held in German. And the Book of Mormon they had was in German. It wasn't until Brazil got involved in Second World War that you know holding meetings in German became forbidden. Then they started having to do it in Portuguese and published the Book of Mormon in Portuguese, and then the church started that way. That's the story I heard from the church itself, right?
It's so weird. They didn't want to teach dark-skinned people, but they were okay teaching Nazis.
Right. And interesting, the blacks and the priesthood was the very first controversial subject that I got exposed to in my life, right?
Okay, I was going to ask you all that. Were you taught before you got baptized that the Mormon Church had excluded black people from membership from the priesthood or the temple for 150 years? Sandra?
Nope.
You weren't taught that?
Nope.
Do you think that would have influenced you if you had been taught that? Or maybe not? Okay.
Maybe. And then interesting because they don't talk about like polygamy.
Were you taught that Joseph Smith had 30 plus wives?
No.
No?
Emma, that's it.
How about you, Marcelo?
No, not at all.
Neither of those two things?
So never came up in any church material, classes, or anything, right? The one time I heard anything about it was in the hallways. I don't remember how the conversation started, but it was, you know, a very black guy talking to someone else, and I think I overheard the conversation or something. I joined the two of them when they were talking about it, and I overheard it. That the church for some time didn't allow priesthood for blacks and
or temple.
That wasn't brought up at that point, right? Yeah. But yes, you're right, the temple as well. But the only topic they talked was priesthood.
Yeah.
And the explanation, very like briefly, like, you know, it's a hallway conversation, right? It's like it was that all the descendants of Cain were black. Not all blacks are descendants of Cain. That's how it was explained to me at that point. But all descendants of Cain were black, and God needed to wait until the last one of them died because we can differentiate. We couldn't, right? So God knew. So when the last one was gone, then now the blacks can have, because there's no risk of giving the priesthood to a descendant of Cain. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was so involved in improving myself, serving others. That's what mattered to me.
Yeah.
What happened, and at that point, that would be what, in 1998, 99, 97, 95. So almost 20 years, right? Nobody's impacted by that anymore, so I don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes sense. Yeah.
And it was never brought up. It was just like one quick conversation in the hallway. That was my very first exposure to it.
How about the fact that Joseph Smith changed his first vision story over time? Were you taught that?
No.
No, Sandra?
No.
What about the Joseph Smith?
Again, that was one topic that came up again very quickly. A companion in my mission, he briefly mentioned something about multiple versions of the first vision. He said there were 9. And I was like, again, I'm so busy doing important stuff. Who cares about that?
But again, that was years after you had converted, right?
Oh, yeah, many years, yeah.
And that Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon using a stone in a hat. Did the missionaries tell you that, Marcelo?
Oh, never.
How about you, Sandra?
No, not at all.
Yeah. Or that the temple ceremony came from the Masonic Lodge. Did they ever tell you that?
No.
Yeah. And that's, that's a main value or mission of Mormon Stories, is just to recognize that the church does not provide people with informed consent.
Correct.
And that's, and that's not ethical. People deserve to know the truth about the organization they're joining.
Yeah. They don't talk about that at all, especially during the like when they are teaching the new people.
Yeah.
Like prospecting,
They
right?
keep all that stuff.
Yeah. They don't talk about that. I heard about polygamy when I communicate my parents that I was going to baptize in that religion. They are not against it, but weeks later, my mom called me and said, hey, I just discovered that this church is a polygamist church. And I was surprised because I didn't hear nothing about, polygamy. And I didn't see any family, like a guy with multiple wives or something like that.
But that was the definition that you would see in the dictionary, just the Portuguese dictionary. When you look up Mormonism, it was there. I don't know if it still is.
Polygamist? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She found
and that's
out.
what her mom saw, and it was like, hey, are you sure about this?
Yeah, she found out about, and the dictionary.
Yeah. And to be clear, the Mormon Church still believes in polygamy in 2024.
Yeah.
So that's, it's accurate.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Actually, yes. But what I did, I was like, I'm going to know more about it. And then I asked someone that I trust, a leader. And the explanation was like, oh, that was a long time ago, like in the beginning, and because at that time, because of the persecution, so many men was being killed. So God permit like polygamy just to help the wives. Oh, not the wives, the widows.
Yeah.
The widows. It was for the widows.
And that's also not true. There were more men than women in Utah during those polygamous years. So it's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
And about the black, I heard months later I was baptized. And then I think a co-worker told me about, that church, they exclude the blacks, And then I never heard about it. And then I did the same thing. I went to a leader that I trust, and then I asked. And then he said, oh, no, that was a long time ago and was during the slavery. And then we don't longer believe that. We have blacks in all positions in the church, except the presidency.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm glad we covered that. So Marcelo, 2-year mission, did you leave it feeling even better than before you started? More committed to the church? Do you feel like you gained a testimony or strengthened your testimony on your mission?
I wouldn't say my testimony got stronger or anything. I acquired experience of dealing with people, all the things of living away from home and all that stuff. It did hurt my relationship with my mom and my brother, though, because when I went on my mission, my parents had divorced 6 months prior. And basically there was this fight between me and my dad, and I kicked him out of the house. And I was the one with the good job, and I just left. So in a space of 6 months, my mom lost the husband and the son that was providing. And they really struggled financially when I was gone. And I didn't pay for my mission because of that. So the only asset I had was a car. And I was like, I'm going to leave the car to my mom so they can move around, And they struggled financially. I contacted my bishop back then. I was like, my mom is struggling. They're starving. Church never did anything for them, anything. Then I learned that they didn't do anything. I called the bishop. You go there. I'm here doing everything for the church. You need to go help. And it was actually a friend of mine that got some sisters from the Relief Society. Everybody pitched in and bought some equipment for my mom to start a little business. Church did nothing for them, right? And that was upsetting to me. My mom didn't write me. She wrote me like 2 times while I was in my mission. I would write back every week. So anyway, but I was there doing my best, and the hope was that my sacrifice would touch their hearts, right? Which really didn't never happen. So, but yeah, it was a good experience overall. Yeah, I have nothing to say bad about. One thing, though, interesting is that because I had to wait that little time because of my job and college and all that to make sure everything was in place when I come back, I was a little bit older in the mission. I went on a mission I was 22 when I started, 24 when I finished. And so most missionaries were 18, 19, or 19, 20. I was like, these kids are childish.
Some
of the games they were playing, I was like, what is this? We are supposed to be the army of the Lord. What are these guys doing?
Yeah.
Playing these silly games.
Yeah, I remember having companions that were older, and they were just always shaking their head at how dumb missionaries could be. Yeah. Okay, so you come home. Let's talk about how y'all met. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When was how long after your mission did you guys meet?
So it was 7 months after.
Oh, okay.
So I came home on a mission to marry, right? My exit interview from the mission, my mission president was, he talked about a lot of things. And one of the things he said, Elder Marcelo, what the main reason why returned missionaries leave the church? I was like, no, what is it, President? They can't keep their penises in their pants.
Oh my goodness! Was he from the United States or was he Brazilian?
He's American.
What the?
Yeah, he said that.
So weird. He said penises.
Yes.
Okay.
He's a very blunt guy. He's he says what he thinks. Not a lot of filters.
All right.
I hope that's okay to say here.
Yeah. That's an anatomical term,
right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, all right. So I'll make sure I keep mine in there. So I'm going to marry quick. So I'm jumping, girlfriend after girlfriend, quickly realizing whether or not they were the one, right? So I met Sandra. She was engaged at a time when we very first met. And I was like, okay, she's out of bounds. But then she broke up her engagement later. And then we started dating. It's a long story, but make it short. We started dating. And we dated for, 6 months? And there was this. So at that time, we didn't have a temple in our city. So
that's Fortaleza.
Fortaleza, okay. Yes. There is a temple there now, but before we didn't. The closest one was 12 hours drive from our city, right? So the way that most people go to the temple, especially the ones that don't have a lot of money, the church organizes caravans. So you charter a bus and the whole stake, right? People from the entire stake, and if they can't fill a bus, you invite people from other stakes. You go and spend a week there. So there are dorms attached to the temple, on the temple grounds. So we spend the whole week there. So we decided to go on one of those. We're just dating. And the idea was, let's pray in the temple and decide what we're going to do. Then we go the whole week. We do multiple vicarious sealings, me and Sandra. So we're there doing the sealing, right? And everybody's thinking we are married already. So the very last endowment session, right? So we go through it, get to the celestial room, and it's the very last one in that caravan. And then I popped the question in the celestial room. I don't think I knelt down because you're not supposed to kneel down in the temple. That's where they teach us. But yeah, that's...
Okay. Marcelo, tell me 3 things you loved about Sandra most. 3 things. Go.
That I loved when first met her today.
About her then.
Okay. One, she was a very independent person. She's living by herself. She has her own house. So she is a get-goer, right? Go get him.
Either works.
Yeah.
Either works. Get goer, go get him.
That she is really hot.
Okay.
And she's firm in the gospel.
Okay.
Right. Those are the 2 things. Maybe not necessarily in that order, but
okay. Yeah. Beautiful. All right, Sandra. What are 3 things you loved about Marcelo at the time?
Yeah, I thought that he was really handsome.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like funny. He made me laugh. He was like, and he was like intelligent. I could have a good conversation with him. And then I like that, you know, not only, and it's not only about gospel and church. It's gospel and church. Yes, we can talk about it, but not only about this. So I really like that point. And he was like, he had a good, like, as he said, he was independent as well. He had a good job. He was like returned missionary, right? And then right there was like something that I really liked. It's also a guy that has like a career as an intelligent guy, and I like him. He's handsome and hot.
Nice. Beautiful. That's great. So y'all were married what year and in which temple?
2001 in Recife, Brazil.
Recife.
Yeah.
Where is that in Brazil about?
That's the northeast region.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And were either of your parents or siblings, if you have siblings, able to attend the temple wedding?
Not the temple.
No?
Not the temple.
Was there a civil wedding?
Yeah. And we had the civil in Brazil because of the distance in the temple. That for us was 12 hours driving.
Okay.
So we can marry in the civil before go to temple.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you
yeah,
had a
it
civil
really-
wedding in Fortaleza that everyone, your
Yeah,
parents...
and then the civil wedding, in that wedding, my family was there. Marcelo's family was
Okay.
there. So
That's
everybody
nice.
was there.
And then after you went to the Mormon temple to get sealed.
And sealed.
Right. It really surprised me when we moved to the U.S. and we learned that here in the U.S.
we-
before you couldn't, if you did the civil wedding separate from the temple, you had to wait a year.
Yeah.
Right. That was not the case there. However, there was some time where the area presidency wanted to, really tighten, right, their grip on marriage and stuff. Because usually what members would do, you marry on, if you don't live right in the same city where the temple is, you would marry on a Friday or Saturday, the civil wedding, do the ceremony you want. Church has a ton of restrictions what you can do or cannot do in the church building.
Yeah.
For example, there is a very traditional wedding march, I think it's called, that everybody plays in their wedding. Church doesn't allow you to, don't know why. And you can decorate with flowers the way you want. It's very limited. So we're like, we're not marrying the church building. We're doing another place. We want to do our thing, right? It's our wedding, it's our day.
Okay.
So we had a little bit of a hold on that, right? Didn't let the church guide, restrict us from doing what we really wanted. But anyway, you marry Friday or Saturday and go to the temple. Temple is closed on Mondays. So you do the sealing on Tuesday.
Okay.
So there was a time where the church leadership was like, no, if you don't do it the next day, you have to wait a year.
Huh.
So that's stupid.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was short-lived.
Yeah,
But
okay.
they tried
That
to do that.
didn't work in Brazil. Not that way.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so just for the sake of time, I'm going to ask you just some broad questions. So you're married in 2000, you said
2001.
2001. And then how many years between that and you guys moving here to the United States? How many years between 2001 and...
We came in 2009, so we're
Okay, so
7
you were in
years.
Brazil 8 years. Did you have any kids during that time?
Oh yeah, we had 3 kids.
3 kids in Brazil
Yeah.
Correct.
while you were there.
Yeah.
And then tell us just some of the callings or responsibilities you held while you were
Yeah.
Mormons, a young Mormon couple in Brazil.
Yeah.
Either one.
I would like to go back a little
Okay,
bit
yeah.
because when Marcelo was he's doing his mission, I was like living another life. Not mission, right?
You strayed from the path a little bit?
Kind of, but no. So when I baptized, I had 6 months in and about 5 out, and then go back. I
Okay.
went back.
Okay.
Right, but during that time, I have all sort of callings.
Oh,
And in Brazil, because sometimes they lack of people that can, excuse me, they are lack of people that can fulfill the callings. Sometimes we have multiple callings.
yeah.
And then I moved from words, right? And then that words, I had a lot of callings. I was like, and the young women, I was like camp leader. I was like, not only in that one, but in others. I was like camp leader. I was like second counselor. I was the president of the young women.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As a single woman.
Not as a single woman. When I was when Marcelo was called bishop, I was called the young women president.
What was your profession during those years?
Okay, I was working for Sony, and I was like sales promoter.
Okay.
And that time I had a great job.
Yeah.
My own car. Right, and people really respect people like that.
Yeah.
Anyway. But when I was in this other world, I started to date the bishop's son. Bishop's son.
You dated the bishop's son.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did the bishop's son. And then I had already maybe, I think, 2 callings. I was the seminary teacher and the camp, young women camp leader.
Yeah.
And then the bishop called me for an interview. And then I thought it was another calling. I was like new in the church. I was not even a year member of the church. And then for my surprise, the interview was like for like dignity. It wasn't for calling. So.
Do you mean worthiness? What do you mean?
Worthiness.
Okay.
Yes. And then.
The bishop called you into a worthiness interview.
Yeah.
A year into your membership.
Year before.
Okay.
And it wasn't not because I was like close to a year.
Oh, okay.
It's because I was dating his son.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he's wanting to find out whether you're breaking any rules with his son.
No, because he trusts his son and he knew we're not doing anything.
Oh, okay.
He wants to know if I was a virgin.
Oh my goodness. Are you comfortable sharing how he asked that?
Yeah. So, yeah, and then I already have talked about this with, now he is my friend.
Oh, the bishop.
Not the bishop. The bishop was to be my friend. And his son, because he passed, the bishop. He's no longer here.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so what happened, he called me for this interview, and he was like pretty straight. Like I said, okay, my son is a virgin, and he is looking for a wife. He wants to find a wife. And he is looking for a strong, like, member of the church. And like, anyway, he asked me if I was virgin.
Wow. How'd that make you feel? Was that shocking? Was that normal?
It was shocking. I wasn't expect that question at all. I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah.
I felt confused, actually.
You didn't know what was a thing?
Virginity.
Oh, okay.
Do you know?
And that was that important.
Well, yeah. And then I was like, I cannot lie. I'm not going to lie. I told him, no, I'm not virgin. I had this like long relationship before to be baptized, right? Was the relationship that I broke. And then I thought I would marry that guy. And yes, we had sex. And then when he started to ask how many times.
You had sex?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And then,
like that mattered.
And like, do you know how many times? I don't know, because it was almost 3 years relationship. I didn't count.
I wasn't keeping tabs, right?
Yeah, as you write down 2, 3,
right.
4.
Yeah.
Like, what's he thinking?
And then he asked those questions. You know how long, and then it was like. Anyways, if it was a long-term relationship, it was how many times, and I don't remember anymore.
How did it make you feel to have him ask you those questions?
That was the big problem. I felt like I wasn't forgiven.
Oh.
I was doubting. It's like that question, that interview made me doubt my dignity. My not dignity, was my worthiness.
Yeah.
My worthiness.
Yeah.
Am I forgiven?
Yeah.
I didn't tell the missionaries I wasn't a virgin. I did not supposed to, because when they asked me about, are you keeping the
Law of chastity.
exactly. I said yes because
Because you were at the time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't know. Now I don't know. And it was like he put the sin back on my shoulders.
Yeah, because one of the benefits, quote, of baptism is all your sins are washed away.
Yeah.
And so you're so happy. It's like, oh, whatever bad things I've done, now I'm clean. And now this bishop, a year into your membership, is making you feel dirty, like your baptism didn't clean you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then I was like about 24 years old at that time. And then I was like strongly encouraged to go to the temple and do the endowments.
Yeah.
And I was single.
Right.
But I was like, my bishop, my friends, my boyfriend, go to the temple. And they gave me a booklet talking about the temple. And that was the only information I had about the temple. And it's so superficial, In my head, I was going to this beautiful place. That you feel peace. And then you come back with using garments. That's it.
Oh, and I mean, I think you would agree the temples are beautiful. So I think what you're saying is you didn't feel beautiful going to the temple. Is that right?
Well, that, yes.
Or did you?
Yeah, I was like, the worthiness, I was just like, I don't know if this sexy, like not sexy, like having sex, not be a virgin.
So I think
It would be a big deal. But I was like, I am worthy to go to the temple. Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to say something?
I'm just saying, I think what Sandra's trying to say is that because he kept being brought back up, she was always doubting, right? Am I really clean from what I did?
So
right?
sad.
Yeah, that's true, Marcelo. I have told him about it because it's all the time that I went to like a temple interview that they ask about it. Because when they ask, it's like more deep, I think. And I was like, I'm not sure, but still, I can go to the temple.
Okay.
And then I went to the temple for the first time. At that time, the closest temple was in São Paulo. And we went on bus. It was we call caravana, like a lot of people, like the stake, and go just in one bus.
Yeah.
And it's 3 days driving in the bus.
Yeah. I relate. Yeah.
Each way.
No, I know. When I grew up in Texas, the closest temple was Mesa, Arizona. And it was like a 2 or 3 day car ride to the temple. So I did that too, even in the United States. But so I relate. Yeah.
Cool. And when I went to the temple for the first time, single, I had no like a reason to do all that, covenants. But I had a great, what is the name, Marcelo, for the people that
Escort.
Escort.
Her escort to the temple.
Yeah, it was an amazing lady that was with me all the time, guiding me.
Oh, good.
And then when I did my temple covenants, like the initiatory, like the initiatory.
Yeah.
So the first thing before I enter, she said, just remember, whatever they do with you inside is going to be with the most respectful way, is for your salvation, and is sacred.
That's so funny.
And
It's
it
like
was
the
when
lady knows it will be weird. Just know that's a good thing.
Yeah. And when I did was with a rope that is open, that they touch my skin, like my legs, my side, my chest here.
You were naked other than the poncho that they put over you.
Exactly.
And they're putting their hands on your naked body through the side of the poncho.
Yeah, I was like on a chest here.
Yeah,
and
abdomen,
then,
they do
yeah,
groin.
my arms and the side is like
Okay.
my rib cage
Yeah.
right here, and then my legs.
For me, they did the groin. They literally did the groin.
Yeah.
Now with
Okay.
me, but and
Okay.
I didn't felt disrespected or I was okay with that part. Actually, I was okay, but for the endowment session, when we start to dress with the priesthood robes and aprons, right?
Apron.
Yeah, and the veil, that I look around and see all the people with the same clothes, I thought this is weird. This is so
The
weird.
temple was weird, yeah.
Yeah, the clothes, all that. Anyway, but I was was looking around and I was like surrounded with people that like intelligent people, like successful, like lawyers, like marketing, like people that was there. I was like, these people, they are intelligent people, and they are doing this. I think I've just keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
It would just keep going. So we had I think 3 days in the temple, and then the first day was my own endowments, and then the second day I avoid the endowments. I didn't want to go.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I had so many names to be baptized.
For the dead people.
Yes, I had a list, and then I spent most of my time, and the family, enter all the information, and I met a guy, this young single man, and then he was from Portugal, handsome. And I was like so charming. He's like the way he speaks.
The accent.
The accent. I was okay. We became instantly friends.
Oh, okay.
And we spent the rest of the day and the next day doing baptism for the dead and also going for the sessions. Because at that time we had 2 movies.
Oh.
With the blonde Eve and the brunette Eve.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it was like, okay, we're going to the brunette now. And then after that, we're going to the blonde one.
Right now they don't have movies. It's so weird to think of the Mormon temple not having movies.
Yeah.
But they used to.
And then make my experience in the temple lighter. Like, okay, I can do this.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And
Okay.
then, yeah. Second time I went, same temple, same 3 days in a bus, back and forth. But I was going with my bestie, and I was be her escort. And then I was excited for that.
Oh, good.
And then it was like another fun time because I had like my friends, was more people like my age.
Yeah.
Yeah. The second time when Marcelo, I went, no, the third time when I went
Yeah.
with
That's when
Marcelo.
we went together.
Yeah.
Before we married.
So the temple was okay for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, that's. I'm glad you told that story. The worthiness stuff is really important, and the temple experience is really important. So, okay. Is it okay to? Okay. So we were. Maybe we jump back now. You're married. You stay in Brazil for about 8 years.
Right.
And you shared a lot of the callings that you had. Marcelo, can you give us an idea of the type?
Sure.
I guess it's harder to find Melchizedek priesthood leadership outside the United States. So sometimes younger Mormons get called to higher levels of authority. Was that your experience?
Definitely. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I was called a high priest when I was 21, John, before I went on my mission.
Yeah, I never made it to high priest.
So I was demoted, right, to go on a mission. I remember filling out.
Before your mission, you were a high priest.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So now I'm elder, right? In the
Just for
mission
people who
field.
don't know, the church kicked me out when I was 45. I was never a high priest.
Right.
He was a high priest before he served his mission. Okay, keep
So I
going.
remember being in doubt when I was filling out, papers for people that I was baptizing. Do I put elder or I put, because you're elder Marcelo, right? There's like, do I put elder or put high priest? I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I served in a bishopric before I went on my mission. So that's how
before?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how little leadership we have there.
Yeah.
But
Well,
anyway,
how awesome you were.
No, not really. So I come back from a mission. We marry, right, and then I moved to Sandra's stake, and I had some experiences that were really bad between coming, those about a year right after my mission. I served in the bishopric again, and there was a very contentious war. There were some issues going on. I was burned out. So when we moved, I would go talk to the branch president where we are now living. And I'm like, look, I told him this story. I need a little break. I need to be without a call. I need to, reset. And he was like, I was talking through him because he immediately, or the next day, he was like, I'm going to call you this, whatever it was. And I said no. The first time and only time I said no in the church. And I felt so guilty for so many years about that.
Because Mormons aren't supposed to say no.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
But anyway, got some word callings, and I started serving in the stake young men's president. And we had a lot of activities and loved working with the young men. I always had a little bit of this, feistiness in me, right? The rules need to make sense to me, John. If they don't, I was able to separate a little bit, like what Marcelo believes and what the, young men's president is supposed to do, right? So I remember one time we put together this, a ball dance in our ward and invited people from all sorts of different wards and stakes. And I always liked dances, right? I was the DJ, and we had the lights dimmed. The stake president comes in and is like, the lights are too dim. I'm like, no, they're not. He's like, yes, they are. No, they're not. I read the manual. You're supposed to be able to see across the entire, room, and I can see across the whole place. So it's by the book. He's like, no, you need to, turn the lights on. I was like, okay, I'll turn the lights on because you're saying so, not because I think it's the right thing. So I always had that kind of little bit of a separation, right? But they kept calling me to higher callings, John. I don't know why. I think they liked that somehow. Young men's stake young men's president. I was called a bishop after that. Well, I served in the high council for a little bit, and then a bishop. Served as a bishop for 5 years.
Oh, wow. In Brazil.
In
you
Brazil,
were a bishop.
yeah.
Okay.
So I was called into the stake president's office one Sunday morning, the two of us. And then he breaks the news, right? We're calling you as a bishop. The Lord is calling you. I was like, huh. Remember, I can't say no anymore, ever, right?
Yeah,
I was traumatized by that one time.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess it's yes. So I go home. So that was in the morning. Our ward would meet at, 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. So I had that long to prepare. I was called the same day. So I go back home, throw myself in bed. I was like, my life is going to change forever and a lot. And we don't even have kids. And I got that rubbed on my... No.
Wow.
Going to college.
We were married for a year and a half.
Wow.
You're going to college already?
I was still going to college, and I was 27 at the time.
Yeah. So just for people to understand, like, this is the equivalent of a pastor or a priest.
Yeah.
So without any training, without any kids, having just been married a couple of years, you're put in charge of an entire congregation while you're still in college. Like, that's mind blowing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that got rubbed on my face a time or two, right? Trying to give counsel about family and raising kids. Like, you don't even have kids. So yeah, you're right.
Because you're supposed to counsel the church members who are married as a bishop.
Yeah.
And you're not even, and you don't even, who have kids, and you don't even have kids.
Yeah. But the mantle, right? Is supposed to teach me everything I need.
Plus, you were called for the new ward.
Yeah, so the ward was splitting that day, and I was called the bishop of the new ward. So served for 5 years. I really wanted to come to the U.S. to study, learn English, and have a college experience here. And I remember praying about it, and I felt very strongly that I shouldn't go at that time because I had this commitment. I don't break my word. I said I would stay, and I'm staying, right? Until, for the 5 years, that's usually the tenure of a bishop. So I stayed there, and 5 years are approaching. I'm starting to prepare again, right? Studying English and taking tests and doing everything I need ahead of time to, come to BYU. That was the plan.
To BYU.
To BYU, yeah, because there is a scholarship that I could take advantage of, a full ride scholarship. And that was the plan, right? Then 5 years are approaching. The stake president is to be released. So, 70 comes, interviews everybody from the high council, interviews all the bishops in the area. And we get called in after that. Sandra gets called in, right? They call me and say, hey, can Sandra come here? And at that point, I know what's going to happen, right? And okay, yeah, sure. So she comes in, we get the interview. And then 70 asked me. So during the interview, I told him, right, my plan is once I get released, I'm going to go to BYU and et cetera, et cetera. And then when Sandra comes in, he's interviewing us together this time. And he goes like, what do you think about postponing that plan for 10 years? Because that's usually the stake president tenure, right, or service. And I'm like, I would feel very frustrated. I'm 32 now, and that would mean 42, and that's kind of getting out of the range of age I was coming for the MBA program.
Yeah.
So I was kind of getting a little old for the MBA program.
So they were going to call you to be a stake president.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like a cardinal, I don't know, in the Catholic Church, like over like 10 congregations.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, which is flattering. Mm-hmm. Like it's a position of high responsibility and respect in the Mormon Church.
Right.
But you had other plans.
Right, yeah. And the interesting thing, John, is that one of the reasons, there was this, that since I was 6, I wanted to be fluent in English and all that. When I saw the church catalog of materials in Portuguese was super thin, it was a pamphlet. In Spanish was like 3 times as thick, and in English was like a Bible, right? So thick. Like, look at all the material I'm going to have access once I'm 100% fluent in English, right? So anyway, and so I tell him that. He doesn't care. He calls me anyway.
Oh, wow.
So I get called to be the stake president. We had 8 wards at that point. The stake president was going to serve a mission. And so I was taking his place. So I stayed there for 2 years.
So you were a stake president?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
I don't say
wild.
no, John.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't used to.
Dang, that's so much responsibility for a young...
Yeah, 32.
Yeah. That's
2
wow.
kids at that point.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And did y'all love that, hate that? What was that like being a stake president's wife,
Oh, it's a challenge.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Not only the stake president wife, the bishop's wife, I have to
And you
give
were
them-
were you Relief Society president as the
I
bishop's
was-
wife or young women's
I
president?
was young woman.
Okay, so you're basically running the ward
Yeah, I was like,
and then the stake.
Yeah.
I was like young women president for a while, and then when I was released, I was called the seminary teacher.
Yeah. Wow.
It was a lot of work. I never looked, I never sought that. But interesting, I loved it, John. I love helping people, right? That's the reason why we have the YouTube channel, the Facebook group, and all that. I love helping people. And it was a very poor area, and there was a lot of opportunity to help, especially kids, to get out of the slums and give them what the church once had given me, right? A purpose in life, goals, role models, so they can break the cycles that they have in their families with drugs, with alcohol, and all that sort of problems. Mm-hmm. So it was a good experience, right? Challenging for sure. You become like everybody's looking your life, right? I remember having to take pictures down, back then, social media back then, Orkut. You guys never had that here. It was a Google thing that you guys never had, which is funny.
Oh.
But there was a picture of Sandra with a swimming suit, and people thought it was a little scandalous, and were calling my counselor, take this down, take this down. I was like, okay, whatever, fine. I'm not gonna, hurt anyone's feelings. But yeah, I said yes to the calling. We had, 2.5 year run. Church in Brazil was very, I believe still is, very, very vibrant, right? It's growing. We're creating new wards all the time, new stakes. So in 2 years and a half, and again, I was like, do I really need to, give up my plan? Then I met a recruiter from BYU. He came to our city and interviewed me, and he said, no, just prepare someone to take your place and come to BYU. And so that changed my paradigm on that. I was like, okay, I'll go. And that's what I did. I served for 2 years and a half as a stake president. And the day I was released, it wasn't just me, right? There was we were working towards splitting the stake for years. And the main purpose was to get enough stakes to justify a temple in our city. That was the plan. Everybody was engaged in that, right? Everybody. So, yeah, we split the stake the day I was released. So I was going out and 2 new ones coming in. So that was a fun experience. Now, at that point, I was starting to notice that the church wasn't, the system of the church wasn't feeding me spiritually anymore.
Oh.
Right? That whole rush of let's go, and do, that wasn't working for me. I did not realize at that point. Now, looking back, I know that's how I was feeling at that point. And the one hint to that was that when I was, we are having the stake conference. I know the stake's going to be divided, and then we're going to have 2 new ones, new presidencies. So I gather the stake leadership, right? All the organizations, all the presidencies. And I remember telling them, look, we did all this. It's great. I know I'm not going to be here anymore. You don't have to listen to anything I'm saying. You're going to listen to the new guy. But if it was me, the one thing I would like to focus from now on would be the individuals. Not programs, not splitting anything, not creating new words, individuals.
Not numbers.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I didn't think this way back then, but now I know that was because it wasn't working for me at that point anymore. I wanted introspection, internal change. And the church wasn't helping me anymore with that, right? It's almost like it worked for a time period, but I need something different now to keep moving forward. I felt like I was stuck in a hamster wheel, doing the same thing over and over and over and over, and not going anywhere spiritually and personally speaking. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Well, and so that's kind of your internal voice kind of waking up a little bit. You don't quite know what it means.
Yeah.
But having said that, like, this is one of the hardest parts about these stories that I do. You're not only getting this great community, meaning, purpose, you're getting leadership responsibilities, not just as a bishop, but as a stake president, you as a seminary teacher, you're getting status in your community, you're getting influence, power even, and then you're getting a move to the United States and, to advance your career. What's not to love? What an incredible set of positive results to you joining the church, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And we just look for the great parts and like focus what is good, right? We don't pay attention what the things that is hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that's a preview to what's coming, maybe. Yeah. So, but I mean, you moved here in what year?
2009.
2009.
Yes.
Okay. To pursue an
MBA.
MBA where?
At BYU.
At BYU Provo.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm dying. So, but that's an interesting thing because you're like bishop, then stake president, and then you come here. And I would just be honest. I don't think Mormons in the United States respect Mormons from other countries as much. And so I wonder if you felt a downgrading of respect once you came here. But I don't want to put that into your story if that's not true. What was it like to come to BYU after having been a stake president from Brazil? What was that like?
Well, it was a big change for sure.
Was it?
Yeah, because, John, I was putting in probably at least 20 hours a week of work in the church, right? Tuesdays interviews and Wednesday meetings, and Sunday starts at 6 a.m, goes until 10 p.m., doing meetings, visiting wards and, visiting people and all that. plus all the time I'm spending at home preparing talks. I was giving talks every week, basically, visiting a ward, and the bishop wants the stake president to talk, right? So it was a lot of time. And then I come here and crickets. We go to a student ward, a family student ward at BYU, and we keep going for a few months, 2-3 months, and nobody calls us to talk to us. The bishop doesn't even know we're there.
Yeah.
Nobody comes to visit us. Nobody gives us anything to do. And the lessons suck because it's a bunch of kids teaching stuff. It's like, that lesson was awful. And, then I'm feeling, no, we are not being seen here. Let's go to a regular ward because we had that option, right? So we went to a regular ward, which was a little better. But again, you're there, they know you're a student, you'll be there for 2 years and they'll be gone, so they don't invest in you emotionally or relationship-wise or anything, right? And for a while, it felt bad, but then I was like, hey, the MBA program is pretty tough, so it's actually good that I don't have to spend time doing other things. I can focus on studying.
It's got to be hard to go to grad school in a second language. Like grad school is super hard in your own language. Doing it in a second language?
Yeah, I had
with technical business language and accounting language and finance language, that's got to be incredibly difficult.
Yes, it was. I remember I was peaking on accounting, right? My bachelor's is in accounting.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, accounting class, it's going to be easy peasy. I have to relearn the whole vocabulary about that. It's all different. Professor would speak so fast.
Yeah.
I recorded the lessons, the lectures, so I could go back and re-listen to them multiple times.
Wow.
The first semester, that's how it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like a fire hose.
Yeah.
How was the transition for you, Sandra, moving here?
A big challenge.
Really?
A huge challenge.
What were the hardest parts?
The language.
Yeah.
The barrier of the language. Yeah. I came here with no language, with no English. It was like
really?
Few words, some sentences.
Yeah.
That's it. With 3 kids.
Yeah.
Like 3 little kids. I had a 5-month-old.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know what I mean? Like just a baby and 2 kids, like one in each side of my like that. It was like a challenge. And Marcelo wants to BYU like 8 in the morning and come back home about 7
Oh
at
my
night.
gosh. So you're in a new country and he's never around.
No.
And you've got 3 little kids and you don't speak the language.
No.
That's got to be incredibly hard.
It was. And then I tried to study. I went to this English school. It was like called Dixie, I think. And then I tried taking my 3 kids with me. I remember my 3 first day there. I had my little baby and the chair.
The stroller.
in a class. And it was a huge challenge for me. And then Marcelo told about the students' word. Well, for me, the experience was the opposite. I liked the students' words better. I knew who was the president at the time. I had friends there. My neighbor that was helping me was my angel, right? That was helping me all the time by my side. I love her until forever. I love her forever. Connie, I love you. And then Marcelo said, no, let's go to the family ward because we're going to spend just 2 years in this country. And then I want to see the churching running here like as a fool, right? Yeah. And then we went there and then I disappeared.
What do you mean?
I disappeared.
She wasn't seen. She wasn't seen.
Oh.
I was called. Yeah, we are called to be the nursery assistant of the assistant, maybe. And then we have to show up like every other Sunday. So I was like every other Sunday in primary, and then the other one in the Relief Society. So, but then in the Relief Society, I was like no one. And then when we are in Brazil serving, like we live in an area pretty close to a poor area. And we have this sister in the Relief Society that she was uneducated. She always come, sit in the back seat, never participate, never say a word, and go home. She had no friends.
Oh,
You know,
Yeah.
I think because she couldn't read, and she never participates. And then when I was in that word in Provo, I felt like that sister.
oh. So
I didn't know who was the Relief Society president and the consul. I just knew the secretary, but I looked at like 4 ladies. I said, I know that one is the secretary. I don't know those 3. I don't know who they are.
So there
here.
weren't like members of the ward or the Relief Society that would try and reach out to you, make you feel comfortable, try and help you understand, answer questions.
No. And I didn't know who they are.
Yeah.
I saw the ladies there, nice ladies,
Okay.
beautiful smile,
Yeah.
well dressed. I don't know who they are.
Oh.
Our the not visiting teachers was a couple. What we called
Home teachers.
home teachers.
It was a couple instead of the
they
regular,
were amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, they were amazing. But I was like, I wasn't feel like how can I say nurture for the spirit.
Yeah.
I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And
The language.
just so people understand, it's not like we were missing, the praise and being up there in the pulpit and all the attention we would get, right? Back in Brazil, it was like, I'm not doing anything in the church. I like helping people, right? And I'm not helping anyone right now. So it felt really bad because of that, right? Not that I wanted the attention or anything like that. I think I speak for Sundays the same. It's just like, we're doers, right? We want to do something, help people.
Yeah.
Help,
Yeah.
feel like we're propelling the kingdom forward,
Yeah.
not just sitting in the back and being a weight, being
Yeah.
carried.
Yeah.
Now, when we moved to Idaho Falls, the experience in the church was totally different. We had an amazing word with
Okay.
amazing people. I felt so welcome there.
So you were at BYU for 2 years, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
And then you left BYU what year?
2011.
2011. And that's when you go to Idaho Falls?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did y'all think about not going back to Brazil, but like deciding to change countries and raise your children not in Brazil, but in the United States? Was that exciting? Was that scary? Was that sad?
All of the above.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're abandoning your country? Or-
No, I don't think I ever felt like that. I was just, hey, there are better opportunities here. We loved Idaho Falls, small city, safe for your kids. My kids can bike to school and don't have to worry about their safety,
Because
right?
Brazil can be, I mean, the United States can be super dangerous.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
Chicago can be dangerous, like
Yeah.
DC, like parts of Utah. But generally speaking, I know a lot of missionaries that had guns pulled on them in Brazil.
I
I
did.
think that happens more frequently in Brazil than it happens in the United States on average, right?
Yeah, especially in big cities.
Yeah.
So big cities,
Yeah.
big problems everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Brazil, we can have a really tough.
So Idaho Falls is a lot safer than
Yeah.
Fortaleza.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Fortaleza has 2.5 million people
Yeah.
and all the problems that come with that many people
Yeah, yeah.
put together.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So overall, you were excited to move and raise your family here in
Yes.
Idaho Falls.
Yeah, I was, because especially at that time, my kids was like just, like 5 years old, 3 years old, and 2 years old. Anyway, to raise them in that small town, with great people, with surrounded by members of the church, because in Brazil, we're surrounded with not members of the church all the time. But here, they everywhere. My neighbors, almost everybody. So I was like, awesome. I like it. But we always had the idea like to go back home And yes, now we have kids like in college right now.
Yeah, this is their first
Right.
language,
It's-
you know,
yeah, and
that's their home.
Yeah.
I don't want to put them through the same thing I went through moving away
Yeah.
from the place I called home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So is it okay if we talk about when your faith started unraveling? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So that start in Idaho Falls pretty much? Were you pretty strong in the faith before moving to Idaho Falls?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So what happened? When did your faith start unraveling? It seems like Idaho Falls would even strengthen, because it's a very Mormon town, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What percentage of Idaho Falls / Ammon, is it Ammon that's
Yes.
near Idaho Falls? What percentage of Ammon / Idaho Falls is active faithful Mormon?
I think it's active. I don't know, but I
Okay.
think it's about 50%.
Okay.
John.
Like
yeah.
every other person's Mormon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you think-
At my work, I would say probably 80%.
Okay.
It's higher than that.
So you're going to become super faithful if you move
yeah.
to Idaho Falls. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. So what happened?
And to be honest, I hated Provo, right, for multiple reasons, and the main one being too many Mormons together. I think you said this at one point, and I totally agree that, like, if the scriptures say, right, that we are the salt of the earth, right? If you put too much salt together, it just spoils the food, right? If you have I think the fewer
Yes,
Mormons you have, the fewer the less the concentration,
Yeah.
the better they behave,
Yes, yeah.
because they have to, get along well with everybody else around them.
Absolutely.
But we went from Provo 90% Mormon or more to Idaho Falls 50%. Like, this is great. It was a much better experience, right? So anyway, we get there, we have, we start getting involved again, and I worked as a Boy Scout master, I think it's called. Worked most of the time with the youth, and I'm getting, back in action, right? Doing things, helping people, visiting, and all that. But then in 2014, my mom had a brain stroke.
Oh.
Right. So got half of her body paralyzed, severely impaired her speech, and all that. And then the next year, 2015, I ruptured my Achilles tendon playing soccer.
Oh.
And then that same year, a little bit later, I got diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, no.
Right, with a lymphoma.
Cancer?
Yeah,
What?
lymphoma. Yeah.
Lymphoma.
Yeah, in the same. So within a year,
Oh, my
basically, all of
goodness.
those three things happened.
And again, you just said this. What year again? Is this?
2015. So
Okay.
14, my mom, and then 15, me, both the Achilles tendon and the cancer diagnosis.
Wow. Okay.
And my mom is coming to spend 6 months with us, and I'm wearing a boot and doing radiation therapy, right?
Yeah.
And I can't tell her because her health is fragile, so she can't know any of that. So what that did to me, John, maybe people would look, oh, see, he thought, he only believed in God and the church once things were going well. Once it goes, bad, he stops believing. It wasn't that. What happened, what that did to me was mortality became very real very quickly to me. I was like, I'm not going to be here forever, right? And I get emotional when I think about that. I'm like, I will die. You know that in your mind, but for the first time, it really hit me. And I want to make sure I invest in my time and everything in the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm not wasting any of this.
Now, for some, that makes them believe stronger because
Right.
they want the answer to the question of death to be
Right.
Mormonism and then the plan of salvation. That's
Right,
great.
right.
So how was that?
Then
for
a
you?
lot of questions that were put on the shelf, right? All of a sudden, like, no, I don't have time to wait anymore. I have to find answers. And funny enough, I started questioning God before I even thought about the church.
Oh.
Yeah, I came across a YouTube channel that was basically an angel, a little angel. What is it called? Anyway, so it's animation, right? So the angel dialogue with God. So all the things that God did in the Old Testament, all the atrocities, right? Killing people, genocides, killing, threatening people because they were not circumcised or because they didn't finish having sex with, they didn't want to procreate, so they pulled out or whatever. They killed the guy. I was like, what is this? So the angel is questioning all those things. Right? So I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. That's not a very loving God. So I started reading book Sapien. Actually, I go on a trip to Lake Powell with a bunch of guys. We're on a houseboat. And on the way down there, it's a 10-hour drive from where I live. So someone puts an audiobook, the book called Sapiens. And then I'm like, we listened to one chapter. I was like, that is really cool. I want to know more about that because that kind of, hits right on the nerve. So I download the book, devour it in 2 days, come back, and for 1 year, I'm studying more and more about this and having more and more questions. And in that process, then I started looking into the church. And at that point, I am a ward mission leader.
Again.
Which is funny. My very first calling.
Yeah.
And that's where it ends. Spoiler alert.
Oh.
So I'm preparing a lesson for gospel principles. And the lesson is on priesthood. And I'm like, what if someone asks about the ban on the blacks? Because I had heard about that once. And again, during the MBA program, someone brought it up very quickly. I'm like, I need to know about that. What if someone asks? I need to be prepared. So I go search online and find the essay on the church website. And I read the essay,
Race in the Priesthood.
Race in the Priesthood,
yeah.
That's right. So I read the essay and I feel like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then I go give the lesson. Nobody asked about it. But then I go back home.
And the essay basically says God wasn't the author of the priesthood ban. Or it says, no, the priesthood ban wasn't doctrinal. Mm-hmm. It was just the opinions of the leaders and policy.
Right.
And we don't know why God did it.
Right.
But we just have to have faith. Is that a good summary of what it said? Which is totally different than what I was taught growing up.
Yeah.
But, And
in a very subtle way, it says, oh, well, it was Brigham Young's, he was inserted in a racist world. That's what his worldview was because of that.
Yeah.
Because of the context he was in. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So I go, nobody asked about that. And I go back home. I was like, wait a minute. Isn't he supposed to be a prophet and know better? Why is he being, teaching as God's word, something that's just his own prejudice? That something is not right about that. And then I remember there was a little paragraph saying that, but hey, when Brigham Young instituted the ban, he promised they would have the priesthood at some point. So that's great. Prophecy. I want to read the full text of that. Then I go online and I find his speech to the Utah legislature. And it's like the most racist speech I ever seen in my life. And John, I'll tell you, I think that was the first time I had a real encounter with racist thinking. Because my dad is black, my grandpa is black, not 100%, right, how you would think of a black, but everybody's mixed in Brazil. So racism was never a thing to me. It was like, just because your skin is a little darker, you're not, dumber or filthier or whatever. But then that hit me really hard. I was like, whoa, that's not right.
Brigham Young's
speech. And
do you remember what he said in it?
Oh, he says that they can't have a drop of authority in government or in the church, that anyone that mixes their seed with their seed should be killed on the spot, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That the punishment for having sex with a black person for a white person is death.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and worse than that, I could maybe accept that, it was the views of his time. He confused things.
By the way, that was worse than normal for his time, just to be clear.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm like, I understand how, I was inspired in the callings, things I did as a, bishop, that sometimes comes to your mind. I don't know, I could justify. But the thing that I could not justify was that the church lied to me about that, or at least they hid it, right? They were not honest by their own definition. Mm-hmm. Because the essay said, but look, he promised that they would receive the priesthood But then when you read the whole thing, it says they would, after every descendant of Abel or all the whites had their chance.
Yeah.
That is not, first, that didn't happen, so failed prophecy.
Right.
And second, you didn't include that in the, you removed that from your quotation,
So
which
now,
is dishonest.
Now, not only is are Mormon prophets racist, but they get their prophecies wrong, and the church is hiding the truth from its members.
Correct.
It's like a triple betrayal.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. And that's really the worst to me. Lied to me.
Yeah, because
right?
honesty is really important to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I just went down the rabbit hole of that, right? So that was the first essay, and then the next one I think was polygamy, you know. And then at that point I started not trusting what the church was.
What did you read in the polygamy essay that was shocking that you didn't know?
From the essay, no.
From the polygamy essay, I can help you.
Yeah, the things blur now. Yeah, go ahead.
So Joseph had how many wives?
Yeah, 30 plus.
And some of them were as young as?
Yeah, 14. Yeah, I guess that is there. Because, I mean, sometimes I don't remember what the church is willing to say, how far they go. But yeah, those things.
Some of them were already what?
Already married, yes.
To other men.
Yeah.
So he was marrying married women.
Yeah.
Right?
The polyandry thing, totally.
And then there were sister pairs and mother-daughter pairs. It was just, and he was lying. Did he tell Emma?
Yeah.
Did he let her know that he was getting into these marriages?
Yeah, I don't remember if the essay I think admits that, right?
Yeah.
That in some cases she didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait.
He was hiding it from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then because my experience with the race and the priesthood essay, I was like, I knew what they were saying was not the full truth.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, I ain't going to research outside of the church material. And
those are just two super huge things. That the racism and the polygamy of Joseph Smith, no one should be baptized in the Mormon church without being told those two things, at least.
Correct.
Right?
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're learning them at what age?
At that point, 30, I don't know, 7. No, wait. No, I was 41, 42.
After having served as a missionary, a bishop, a stake president, a seminary teacher, right? A Relief Society president, a Young Women's president. You're given like a decade or two of your lives to the church. And then in your 40s, you're learning these things?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just not right.
No.
Yeah.
And I felt betrayed.
Yeah.
And I felt, like Sandra multiple times said, if they told me it was a rock in the hat, how is that any different from the freaking glasses made of transparent rocks, crystals?
So, Sandra, you were saying that stone in the hat don't matter, the Urim Thummim, stone in the hat, who cares? It's all the same, which is fine.
Yeah, I believe there are other stories, that they see Jesus and God.
Yeah.
And then the whole story of the Book of Mormon, this book like burying a hill, Cumorah thing,
Yeah.
I did believe all of that.
Yeah.
What the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, like who cares if it's a Urim Thummim or a stone in the hat? It's all kind of, it's all spiritual. It's all a miracle.
Right.
And so it makes sense that those things wouldn't necessarily bug you. The problem is that we were lied to and deceived about it. But
Exactly.
but maybe that didn't matter. I mean, the truth is, if the church had been a huge blessing to your life, if it had made you happy, if it had given you all these opportunities, and if you were enjoying it and you had friends in Idaho Falls and you were loving raising your kids there, that's a lot of incentive to not care about the history, right?
Yes. They don't care.
Yeah. Why? So does that mean y'all were in a mixed faith marriage where you were struggling, but Sandra wasn't?
I didn't even know he was struggling.
Oh, so were you afraid to tell her, Marcelo?
What it was I wasn't certain about what I was learning at that point, right? So for a few months, I think, I was just researching. I would go down to the basement and lock the door and research and research and research.
Yeah.
And I would go to work the next day, stop in the parking lot and cry and cry and cry because I didn't want any of that to be true. I mean, the lies that the church had done.
Yeah.
I was like, no, there's got to be a way to explain this away. But then it got to a point where it was undeniable, right? All the problems. And I'm like...
So what were some of the others besides the priesthood temple ban and polygamy? Just name a few others.
Oh, the whole Book of Mormon not being a historical document, right? Not have been written by actual Native Americans.
And
the Native Americans not having any DNA from Israel, right? What is this? And the church changing the narrative, changing the Book of Mormon introduction from the Nephites are I think it used to be the main principal ancestors changed to one of the ancestors, whatever they say now.
Among the
I was like, wait a minute. I was told there was millions and millions, and they were all over the place, and all the changing narrative, right? Mm-hmm. And the multiple versions of the first vision.
That Joseph Smith changed the story in significant ways over the years.
And the whole timeline of the thing. It doesn't match when Alvin died and when he supposedly had the vision, when they joined the Methodist church. Yeah. It all doesn't line up with what we are told. It's like, whoa. Every day I was discovering something new, and it was like pulling the floor from under my feet. I'm falling and drowning. Mm-hmm. And I started asking for help. I reached out to the bishop, to the stake president. It was an awful experience, particularly with the stake president. Oh,
so
no.
Did they have answers? Were they helpful?
No, not at all.
Well, how did they react?
So the bishop, I was like, I had been a bishop, so I told him, I know you don't have any training in this. I don't expect you to know the answers. But I need someone that does, and you're the only one, that can point me the way. And his answer was like, I don't think anyone. I wanted someone to sit down with me and study these things and explain to me what I was seeing. Yeah. And he was like, I don't think anyone has the time.
What the?
Yeah, and I was thinking, institute director, they're paid to do this, right? And at that point, I didn't know about the CS letter at all, right? Oh. And I actually never read it.
Oh, yeah.
Because when I finally found about it, I was like, I already know all the problems. I don't need to put them together again. And so talked with the bishop. And then Sandra, one day I had this, I think to me was a brilliant idea. I have one of those every decade or so. But I was like, Sandra, come with me, talk with the bishop. Because at that point we had started talking about these things, and Sandra was very resistant. She doesn't want to hear any of it. I printed the essays and she doesn't want to read them. She'll tell you her side here in a minute, but she's busy for other things. She doesn't have time for that.
Raising kids,
Right.
Were you working, Sandra? Were you working?
I was working, and I was starting to be a real estate. So it was tough. It was a tough time.
And learning the language. And,
I was trying to learn the language.
Yeah.
I was working at DI.
Oh, wow. Deseret Industries.
Deseret Industries was a great time. Uh-huh. I did like that. And studying for this real estate test. And Marcelo wants me to read Brigham Young's speech in the Congress with that language in English. And I was had two thick books to study for real estate, I was like, no.
Yeah.
No.
I was who cares? It makes us happy, right?
He was he was really smart, because he was bring some questions to me, little by little. What do you think about that? I'm studying the Old Testament. Look what's happened there. What do you think? I was like, why you bring me this? And then he's bring questionings about the Brigham. He compare Brigham, the priesthood, not the priest. Yeah, the priesthood, the
ban.
How can I say that?
The priesthood ban.
The priesthood ban with the LGBT problem right now.
Oh, right.
And I was so pissed, because I knew that the LGBT people, I'm sorry, you're not going to heaven, right? Because in the Bible says. Uh-huh. And it was so tough, because I had the mentality that we love them, we just do not
approve what they do.
Yeah. And this is so hypocrite. We do no. It's
the whole
not
love the sinner, hate the sin.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
That's totally wrong.
But that's what the church taught you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was and then I raised to be how can I say, obedient to to my husband.
Yeah.
And then I learn and my core value that my parents taught me.
Yeah.
And then I found this church that's saying the same thing. And then I go to the temple and make promise to God to hear my husband. Right?
And then he's having doubts.
Yes.
And we had agreed when we married that if any time one of us got weak in the faith, the other one had the responsibility to kick their butt and bring them back, right? So Sandra's feeling that responsibility. So I'm comparing, right, the priesthood ban. Well, if Brigham Young, we know now for sure 100% he was wrong in what he was teaching as the word of God. What guarantees us that they're not wrong about what they're teaching about the LGBT now?
Yeah,
it's another group of people they're banning from, privileges in the gospel, right?
Yeah.
How can, what if they're wrong too, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, but Sandra's not accepting that, and
for good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I invite her to come to one of the visits with the bishop, and what that did was that instead of her having to be, in the defensive, defending the church and the faith, she could be just an spectator. Oh. And I think that showed her for the first time that I wasn't trying to tear down what we had. I had legit questions, and I wanted it to work.
You were sincere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wanted it to work.
And they wanted it to work. Yeah.
And the bishop just had nothing, right?
What was that like for you, Sandra, to see that the bishop from America, like you're converts, you come from another country, it's not even your first language. You come to Idaho, kind of Mormon Central. I'm sure he's like a pioneer, bishop, pioneer ancestors bishop. You think, of course, he'll have all the answers. What was it like when your white American Mormon bishop from Idaho didn't have the answers to your Brazilian originating questions?
I wasn't expecting him to have answers.
Really?
I was really watching what the question. Then in my head, I was like, he is asking this to him. He knows he do not have the answer.
Yeah.
I wish he had, because we'll solve our problems that, his doubts. And he was just like bear his testimony. They church teach us this. If you don't know, just bear your testimony, right?
Yeah.
I have done it teaching in all sorts of callings I had, but actually I went to 2 conversations like Marcelo had with this bishop. The first one, I was pretty hopeful, because we left the room and he said, just look for the fruits. Marcelo, look for the fruits. And then at the time, I was really looking for the good things church did for us, the good things we have, because we had the church in our lives.
Yeah.
But the second time was completely different. The bishop was more resistant, I think. And said, just look, Marcelo, I read the same book, and then here I'm strong in my faith.
Wait, this is a different bishop or the same bishop, just a second time?
Same bishop.
Okay.
Same bishop. And then what broke my heart when we're leaving, and by the door, shaking hands, and said, just look, Marcelo, I barely was calling for this, for this responsibility. And I have so many good, now it didn't say good, faithful members that I need to nourish. And
So basically he was saying he had 99 sheep. He didn't have time for the one that was trying to go astray.
Yeah, right there was the message that I was thinking he was telling Marcelo. Literally, I was like, wait a minute. He's saying he has 99 ships and he has no time for this one. And he doubts someone has it.
Yeah. He was like, you can come anytime. We can talk about anything, but not those issues.
Also, is okay, don't come anymore. Right?
He was saying that?
He did. But for me, it was he was saying that. He said, look, I have this many people,
Well, he didn't say don't come anymore. He said don't bring these issues
to church,
because I can't help you with them, right? So you can come anytime you want. We can talk about whatever, but I don't have answers to those. So what's the point, right?
How did that feel for you, Marcelo, for him to basically say, I can't help you and I've got other more important things to attend? How did that make you feel?
Well, it felt lonely. That was the main thing during, those months before I started talking with Sandra. I felt very lonely. I had nobody. I didn't know about Mormon Stories. I didn't know any of the Facebook groups, anything.
CS letter.
I didn't even know about the CS letter. I was alone. And I reached out to a friend of mine who works for CS in Brazil.
Oh.
And I was like, for sure he's going to have answers, right? And
in Portuguese.
He was my, I think I can say this, he was my counselor in the stake presidency. So we were close. I'm like, man, I'm having these questions. I really need help. And he goes, oh, yep, no problem. I'm going to study and I'll give you answers. Weeks go by, I think months. And then I'm like, I think weeks. And then hey, where are those answers? Still working on them? And he's like, yeah, I just don't want to give you half-baked answers, but they're coming. I was like, okay. And then months, John. And I'm like, you know what? I wrote him, you don't worry about it. I found the answers. And he's like, oh, awesome. He just didn't know the answers weren't in favor of the church. But
I just have to say that right now in August of 2024, there's a real push by the Mormon Church to discredit Jeremy Runnels and to say that he wasn't sincere when he wrote the CES letter, that the CES letter is not sincere, that it's deceptive. And I just want to note, your story parallels Jeremy Runnels almost exactly in the sense that you learned these things that you had never been taught, and you went to a CES director to get answers, and he couldn't answer your questions. No. Like it's almost the exact same story, just in Portuguese instead of Jeremy's. Like, of course Jeremy was sincere, and of course you're sincere, and hundreds of thousands of Mormons have had the same experience as us.
Yes,
me
definitely,
too.
Definitely, it gets better, John.
Okay, keep going.
So we have these talks with the bishop, and then Sandra and I are at breakfast table. Kids are there. Somehow we start talking about dinosaurs and age of the earth. And I'm like, millions of years, billions maybe, or whatever. And Sandra is like, no, it's 7,000.
Because the Doctrine and Covenants says that.
Correct. Yeah. And she's like very literal on that. And we have an argument in front of the kids. And that flips a switch on her.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. I said, no, and I was like, witness all Marcelo's, like, at that time, I knew he had all these, doubts, and talking with the bishop and talking with the stake president, I could see that he was genuinely seeking for help. And I decided I knelt down and I prayed to God, and then I said, just look, I had a covenant with you to listen to my husband, right? And I can see he is like, I know him for years living with this guy. He is being genuinely honest, like he has it out and he has a point, right?
Yeah.
So look, I trust you and is in your hand, but I'm going to listen what Marcelo had to say. And at that point on, I said, Marcelo, what you want me to read? Bring them on. And then he didn't bring the Brigham Young's speech anymore. He brought the essays. Oh. One by one.
These are the Mormon Church's own gospel topics essays.
Yes. Correct.
One by one. This one first, Sandra. And then, and then came, like polygamy, and then the black and the priesthood, and then
probably Book of Abraham.
Yes, and the rat and hawk, the rock and the hat, and then
Book of Mormon translation.
One by one, I was reading.
Oh, English or Portuguese?
I think it was in Portuguese, right?
I think I printed them in Portuguese.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then I was like, okay, let's talk about it, right? And then after all of that said, oh, look, you can search also in a those podcasts, and one was your podcast, Mormon Story podcast, and was the Vanya Moore podcast.
And we've had Vanya on Mormon Stories. She does it in Portuguese, right?
I did watch all of that. I watched Vanya Moore's interview and the Mormon Stories, and then I start to watch Mormon Stories, and then I will start to watch Vanya's, because at the beginning of her podcast, she was like reading and then digest the information with, Brazilians, because she was speaking in Portuguese. All those found. She was reading, was like, what is the book she was reading? About
was an Eckhart Tolle one?
No. She was reading
Righteous Mind.
Yeah, and from the Mormon Stories, it was that Mormon Stories. It was was a book about Joseph Smith.
American.
Oh yeah,
Crucifixion.
By Alex Beam. We've had him on.
Yes.
That's a great book.
Yeah. She was like just digesting. She was reading and talking about it. I was like fascinated with her and with your approach with the stories that was coming. And then I have those stories, and of course going to church, and then I start to make my own research in my own way, right?
Yeah.
And then I ended up like losing interest in church because it was so hard to be. I was primary secretary. Marcelo was out. Like, no, I don't want to go to church. It's too hard for me to be there, to listen, all of that, and can say a word. And then I start to feel the same thing because I was bringing my kids with me. And then it's like learning that Joseph Smith came to this young women, like 19 years old, 20 years old, single, and make this horrifying proposal behind their parents' back.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Behind Emma's back, too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Behind,
wife,
yes. So the approach Joseph Smith went to that people was not acceptable.
No.
Not for me.
It's like, marry me, and you get eternal salvation.
Yeah.
And then if you don't, you get cut off and you're damned, basically.
Or an angel's going to come and kill me.
Right. Or an angel with a flaming sword will kill me if you don't agree to marry me. Right.
The pressure they put on them to accept the proposal. Like you have to accept it, kind of like that.
Yeah.
Or
you got 24 hours.
So your family is going to be sealed. So everybody has salvation. Your entire family.
Yeah.
So that's not okay.
It's abusive.
And then you go to the primary and you see that kid's being indoctrinated. That guy is an amazing guy.
Joseph Smith's
yeah, and
next to Jesus. And
yes, and I was like, no, he's not. And now I know.
Yeah.
And then they are teaching my kids, and I did that for years.
Yeah.
You didn't know
and
better.
then I said, I cannot do it anymore.
Yeah.
I need a break, And then I asked for the break. I asked to be released. I talked with the primary president, and then I said, I said that I would like to go to the Spanish word because I genuinely was trying to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
And then I have been Spanish word like maybe 2-3 times, and then could be a possibility, not totally lie, but I really need that break. Yeah. And then I was released. Bishop never asked why, never came to me, never talked to me, never offered support.
Yeah.
Nothing.
My theory is that in the back of his mind, he knew why, but he doesn't want to touch that with a 6-foot pole, right?
Yeah.
So
well, they don't have answers.
Yeah.
And they probably have a lot to lose if they lose their faith. I mean, you're a faithful Mormon in Idaho Falls, bishop, and all your family and friends and community. Yeah. Your job is there. Like, it's just too much for most people to deal with. They just they're going to want to ignore it.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, Marcelo, that your stake president didn't have a good experience with him. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. So talked with the bishop a few times, right? We're going through all this thing. And then all of a sudden I got called to go to the stake presidency for an interview. I'm thinking, oh, great. So they want to talk about it, right? So I get there, and the counselor, stake president counselor, is, to talk with me. And I sit there and I'm like, okay, so you're probably here to talk about my questions on, the things that I asked the bishop. And he's like, oh, what questions?
Oh.
So he didn't know at all. So my assumption today is that they were going to extend a calling to me. High councilman or, something with the young man or whatever. I always worked with the youth there in Idaho Falls.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. Definitely not to answer my questions. So I explained the whole thing to him and tell him a couple of what the major questions I had were. And he's like, oh, I don't know any of that. But I read this great book called Planted.
Oh,
right?
Patrick Mason. Yeah.
Correct. So then he wrote on a sticky note the name of the book and gave it to me. Hey, read this book. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Then I go back home and, again, no answers, right?
Yeah.
But then I think I procured a stake president, right? And I called and scheduled a meeting with him. So I wanted to talk with him. So he schedules the meeting. So I go there. There I am sitting with the stake president. Okay, now things will move. Then I think I explained why I wanted the conversation, right? So he knew I had questions and everything. So he was very armed, right? He was like, I'm like, I have some questions. And he's like, okay, what are the questions? I have a bunch of them. Let's start with the Book of Mormon translation, right? And the changes that happen. And he barely lets me finish the question. He just shoots it down immediately, right? And he's like, oh, yeah, I read the original version. The differences are not significant. Next. I was like, wait. Wait a minute. It's more than that. It's more complicated. Let's talk about what the changes were and why you think they are not relevant and why I think they are. And yeah, of course, there were thousands of grammatical errors which shouldn't be there in the first place if the translation would give Joseph, the exact words on the rock. But that's fine. But there are doctrinal changes too. But he just doesn't listen, right? And then I tried a second question. I don't remember now what it was. But then again, he just shot it. I think it was polygamy, maybe. Maybe it was blacks and priesthood. But he just shoots it down immediately, right? And he's like, look, I know there's all these anti-Mormon literature out there. You shouldn't listen to that stuff and blah, blah, blah. And, I have a testimony. And she bore his testimony. And 15 minutes, he had something else to do. So we stood up and he hugged me and said he loved me. And I left as empty as I entered. And I'm like, that was not helpful at all. I wrote him a letter afterwards, like politely saying, look, I just want you to understand what you did not help me. I didn't want him to go back home and feel like he fulfilled his, calling and helped me, bearing his testimony. I said, no, that's not what's going to solve the problem. He told me later that he never got the letter, which is, I don't know, it's weird because, I don't know, postal service never failed me before.
Yeah.
I sent a snail mail letter, right?
Yeah.
So it never failed me before, ever.
Yeah,
so
right.
it's very
Unlikely.
Convenient that it failed at this
They're
very
always
moment.
the first time.
But yeah, so he gave me 15 minutes to try and solve my questions. And he spent hours deciding if he wanted to excommunicate me or not. That's later in the story. Yeah.
Oh, well, let's go there.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm having all this experience with leaders. Nobody has time to talk to me. Remember that trip to Lake Powell, right? So it's an annual thing. So a year goes by, another trip. And that one guy that put the book Sapiens to play, he was going to be there. Barely knew him. Colleague from work, different department, barely knew him. So I go there. I'm like, I need a chance to talk to him, right? So I'm there, and I remember, John, I'm on the top of a houseboat, skies as clear as I can get. First time I ever see the Milky Way in my life. Never seen it before. It was so dark there, right? Lake Powell was so nice. And I'm praying and talking to God. Look, I don't want to go down this path. If it's not the right one, tell me now. Show me.
Yeah.
Right? And then a bunch of guys come up and they want to watch an NFL game, whatever. I'm not into that. So I go down and I see that guy again, and he's talking about LGBT stuff, and he's siding with LGBT. And the other guy is like, coming down on LGBT, how wrong it is, and, it's not of God, and blah, 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 and unnatural, all those things. Like, now that's the sign, this sign I need. I need to talk to this guy. So I reached out to him after the trip, and I think it was 2017, 2018, on a general conference Sunday. So the trip was September, so in October, I reached out to him, hey, I need to talk. And yeah, absolutely. So we go to a coffee shop, Starbucks.
That's sinful.
Right? They sell hot chocolate too, John.
Okay. Still the appearance of evil. I'm just kidding.
Right. Yeah. So we go there on a Saturday of general conference, and he spends 3 hours with me. My leaders, my pastors didn't have more than 15 minutes. And a guy that I barely knew. And then he introduced me. I didn't even know what a podcast was. Oh. So he started talking to me about podcasts, and he gives me a bunch of resources, going from your podcast all the way down to Infants on Thrones and everything in between, and books and, Fair Mormon and Mormon Think and all those resources.
Probably CS letter at that point.
Yeah. Maybe he talked about the CS letter.
Mormon Think's great. We don't mention that enough.
Right. Yeah. And then he's talking, and I'm crying and opening my heart and really pouring it all. And I think we might have spoke a little bit loud, because then a lady there comes to us, hey, I heard you guys talk about the church. You have any questions? I can answer. I was like, lady, you have no idea. I do have questions. I don't think you want to hear them, though. Yeah. But anyway, so from then on, I had the resources, and I started getting to, Mormon Spectrum at that time, and started meeting people, right, locally. That was game changer, right? And then you came to Idaho Falls, and we had, you did a retreat there. Like 90, 100, 120 people showed up.
That was, I think it was 2012. 2018, yes. So
Sandra was still in the church, and she came, and it was great, because she saw that we, ex-Mormons were, drooling, mad people. They were normal. They were trying to, find a way to live better and, find solutions to the problems they had. Anyway, so we go through that and decide to leave the church. Oh. There's a whole thing, how we dealt with the kids at that point and everything. But after a few months, I started thinking, hey, what is out there in Portuguese that people can, study about these things? And I looked up, and there was one YouTube channel. There was one website that hadn't been updated in ages. And the one YouTube channel, we know the person that has that channel. We love her. But it's a different approach, a little more...
aggressive.
Yeah, a little more aggressive, harsh, really like church is awful. And I'm like, no, my experience with the church wasn't awful. It was great, actually. It doesn't work for me anymore. And that's not how I want to talk about this, right? And there was a gap. There was something missing. And then I decided to start a channel. The very first thing I thought about doing was like, I'm going to take the church essay on race and priesthood, and I'm going to dismantle that thing and show everything that's wrong there. Like side-by-side comparison, right? What they say and what the truth is, right? So I write the whole script.
Wow.
And I show Sandra, and I show a couple people, and it's like, and other people were like, that's great. And Sandra's like, I don't know. That's very much in line with what the other approach is. I was like, okay, fine. And then she says, why don't you start just reading the essays, right? And that's what I did. The first 13 videos are me just reading the essays.
In
I asked in
Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Okay, yeah.
I read a couple questions and I ask a couple questions just for reflection, but it's 90% just reading the essay.
And for those who joined late, tell them the name of the YouTube channel again.
It's Mormonismo sem censura.
Okay.
So Mormonismo
Uncensored.
sem censura with American accent.
One reason that I told Marcelo, like, I didn't support the first approach he brought to me, like kind of a battle. Look like I want to prove that what you said it was like, it was wrong. It's not was like that. It's different. Blah blah blah. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I was looking, researching, and I was still kind to make sense. If I will, I don't know, watch that channel. If I was like, this people, I don't know, this person has questions, I will not at the point send Vanya more videos. But maybe Mormon Stories podcast was a good one, but we do not have in Portuguese.
Right. Yeah.
So let's do like the difference. Like, what about you? Because the essays itself tells a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, let's start with that.
Yeah.
And he did agree. So awesome.
And most the church put those out because we on the internet were making the information so well known, and they didn't have any good answers. They put those essays out so that if people had questions, they could get some answers, even if they're bad answers. But they didn't publicize them to the membership on purpose because they didn't want to spread doubts. And so even though those essays existed, not in the United States and certainly not in Brazil, were the members ever made aware that those essays were there.
Yeah.
So just reading them is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the website in Portuguese made even harder to find essays than in English.
Yeah,
It was like, you need to know what you're looking for and be a little persistent to get there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the links, like that link, what was it? I know that there are some links that you can find in the English version that are not there in Portuguese. There are a lot of those videos, the Now You Know videos that the church publicized here.
Little cartoons.
A lot of them are not available in Portuguese. The
Yeah.
more controversial subjects are not available.
Yeah, of course.
Because nobody's asking those questions at that point in Brazil. So the church is just, damaged managing, right? Just what is needed.
They're being open and transparent on a need-to-know basis.
Exactly. Right. And the funny thing is that I just started reading those essays and a lot of people commenting, this is a lie, this is anti-Mormon stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, is the church material?
Yeah.
But it was very funny.
I was kicked out from one of the church Facebook group because I shared one of Marcelo's video.
Oh.
Yeah.
The one that I was just reading the essay.
Yeah, the essay. Other thing that I think is important to point it out, when Marcelo decided to do the channel, he had this feeling that I was out there in a mission for 2 years, teaching the people about this story, about this church, this one true church that now I know is not a true church. Do you know what I mean? It is a church, but it's not the only church that will take you back to Heavenly Father.
Right.
And then I said, but I cannot go back and say, hey, I was wrong, but I will do something that it will be out there. And if these people come back to me and say, hey, you taught me that, and now you go into another direction, why you didn't tell me the true when you discover,
right?
And he can say it's out there, it's in the website. I cannot go, because if you go to a person that is like in their life, living their faith, doing everything, they are happy, you're not going to bug the person, but the information that we have right now, we have the right to tell and inform the people. It's out there, and anyone can have it. If you don't want to hear, If you don't want to know about the church history in Portuguese, the history that the church doesn't like to tell in Sunday school, don't go to Mormonismo Sem Censura. Don't go there.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, you mentioned your stake president. He considered whether or not to excommunicate you. Mm-hmm. Was there more to that story?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that come later, or is that?
Yeah, we can talk about that now. Yeah. So just one thing, right, about the YouTube channel, right, where we started. A couple things, right? First, honesty. Honesty is my number one value above anything else. I've done some stupid things sometimes just to be honest, right?
Yeah.
I had one that I wanted to say. Now it fled me, but I'll remember here in a minute. I was going to say, even like in movies, right? When I'm watching a movie and the main character needs to hide the truth from their loved one to protect them. Mm-hmm. Like, no, you tell them the truth and let them decide if they want to be part, if they want to send you away, whatever it is, right? Like, it bothers me so deeply at that level, just to give you an idea. Right? So that was one. And the second, like Sandra said, right, I taught this for so long, what the church, gave to me, I just pass it along. What if in the future someone like 10 years down the road comes to me, hey, you knew all this, you never told me.
Yeah, for sure.
No. I don't want to go, be in that position, right? I want to tell everybody. So we wrote a letter to our closest friends explaining we don't believe in the church anymore. We're not going to get into details. We just studied long and hard and prayed and fasted, and we decided what the church told us is not true. If you want to know more, we are happy to tell you. If you don't, that's fine. If you want to invite us to baptisms, so anything church function, we'll go, no problems.
These are friends in your Ammon, Idaho ward, our Idaho Falls ward.
Friends, period. Our closest friends.
Everywhere.
I think we sent like 30 letters.
Okay, everywhere.
Some in Brazil, some here in Utah, some in Idaho Falls.
Okay.
Right? Mostly Brazilians, really.
Okay, got it.
So some we had to send emails and stuff like that. So I sent to all of them, like, I don't want you to find out through someone else, through gossiping or whatever.
Yeah.
And I want you to know that if you want to talk about it, I'm here, right? Anyway, so we started the channel and everything. And then we feel the need to start a Facebook group, a support group. Well, initially it was a place where people could talk about these issues from both sides without censorship, right? Mm-hmm. That's the name of the channel. But years later, it evolved into more of a support group, right? So church members, John, that joined the group, they could not respect the pain of people going through it. Mm-hmm. They were just like, they wouldn't use these words. Sometimes they would, but basically the message would be like, you're just babies. You guys like complain. You wanted to sin. You want to just leave the church. You want to just find an excuse now to explain what you wanted to do all along. And that kind of stuff, right?
Never had a testimony.
Yeah, the whole whack-a-mole thing, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. You find solution for one, another one pops, and it never ends, right? All that. And the rule, my saying the channel, right, is without censorship, but with respect. So I say that in every video.
Nice.
Right?
Smart.
And the rule of the Facebook group is like, you can disagree with any ideas, but you cannot disrespect or minimize anyone's pain.
Yeah.
Members cannot do that. The members that joined the channel, the Facebook group. Right?
Does the Facebook group have the same name as the
Correct.
YouTube channel? Okay.
Yes. And then one by one, they started getting kicked out of the group, right? We would give them warning, hey, you're disrespecting people, you're hurting them, It's like you come into a therapy session about, abusive, someone is trying to heal from an abusive relationship, you're defending the abuser. So that's not the time for that, right? But anyway, so one person that got kicked out of the group decided to locate my stake president. Mm-hmm. This guy lives in Germany, right? He works for one of the church-affiliated companies there in Europe. So he reaches out to my stake president, tells him the whole story. He sends him, I think he sent prints and stuff, talked about the channel. It was anti-Mormon stuff. Then my stake president talks to the bishop. The bishop has to come talk to me. And he's like, the stake president feels he cannot not do something, right? I was like, oh, before he felt like he could just ignore my pain and my questions. Now he cannot not do something, right? That's fine. And so they want to know what the channel is about. Is it anti-Mormon? Am I in apostasy? And the stake president calls me in for an interview. So I go there, and in his defense, John, the man was so nervous. He was shaking, right? There was one point in the interview, and I was like, I'm going to go there, I'm going to ace this thing. I'm going to put my elbows on his desk, and I'm going to assure my position. I'm ready. He is not. Mm-hmm. He's like, there was one point, he's a doctor, and he was on call, so he has to take a call, right, during the conversation. And you can see his hand shaking when he's answering the phone, to the point that he puts on the other side and, puts against his shoulder to not show how nervous he was. So he wasn't doing that, for malicious reasons. He just felt like it was his duty, right? That's how I read it. But anyway, he spends 1 hour with me at this point now, not 15 minutes, okay. 1 hour. And we're talking about these things and how, he's trying to understand the channel. He actually, he asked members of the stake that served in Brazil to watch my videos and come back and report to him what they saw. And the funny thing is that in the beginning of the conversation, he's giving me all the hints for me to know who the person that, told him about me.
Yeah.
Told him, yeah. And I'm like puzzled. I'm like, why is he doing this? Right? I don't think I would, or anyone would. But anyway, I find out that the guy that contacted him reached out through a VoIP phone or whatever. So they didn't exchange contact information. So he didn't have a way to contact that guy back to get more details and maybe get his deposition for a potential court in the church, right? So he's giving me all the hints, so I figured out who the person is, which I did, and he wanted me to tell him who the person was. I was like, President, you want me to give you ammunition against myself? I don't think that is very wise and doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we don't go into the questions I had. He never tried to answer any of them, right? His point was trying to figure out if he could fit me in the box of apostasy, right? If I was a wolf in sheep's clothing or whatever, and was trying to, pull people away from the church and all that stuff. I was in leadership callings. I understand how I've been in multiple of those kind of, conversations, disciplinary actions, all that stuff. I know what he's trying to do. And the church has those three functions for disciplinary action, right? It's protect the good name of the church, protect the innocent, and help the person repent, yeah. Right? And I'm like, all the time, there's only one of those things being hammered on. It's not helping me. It's not helping the innocent. It's protecting the church. Mm-hmm. So we have that conversation. We leave. And he asks for access to the Facebook group. He wants to see what's going on there. I was like, I don't know. Let me think about that. And then later I decide to, yeah, that's fine. You can access with me there because I don't want you getting screenshots of what other people are saying. You can read everything I say. I don't care, right? But it's like the promise of the group. It's a private, safe space. I don't want you, copying what people are saying, sending it to their stake presidents.
Espionage.
Right? And the funny thing is that for a period of time, right after that, American profiles start, trying to join the group.
Oh, so he shared it with
very
people
suspicious.
at church headquarters, and then they tried to send spies.
I can't prove that, but it was very timely, very suspicious, right?
Of course it's true.
Anyway, so some time goes by, and he wants me to talk with the other members of the stake presidency, right? So, okay, fine. I go talk to a counselor, same thing all the time, just trying to identify if they could, pin me with apostasy. And I'm like, one thing with the stake president was funny. At one point he said, if you're angry with the church, why don't you just remove your name?
They always say that.
Right?
They always just say, just make our lives easier by leaving. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm like, in my mind, no, you want me out? You're going to have to do it the hard way.
Yeah.
That's why my name is still there.
Yeah.
By the way, you don't need to pop this question, right?
Yes, and I had read the church handbook about, disciplinary action in preparation for that conversation. So when he says that, like, by the way, President, you're not supposed to tell me that. You're not supposed to encourage a member to remove their name. And then he's like, he doesn't have an answer for that. But anyway, so talk with the other counselor, then weeks later talk to the second counselor. And then this time I'm tired of this whole thing. They wanted Sandra to come, and she's like, why? I don't have anything to tell them. Mm-mm. If they have answers, I'll go. But if it's just the same, I'm not wasting time. But I'm like patiently going. I want them, if you want to excommunicate me, it's fine. There is nothing there that you can excommunicate me for, but it's your prerogative. If you excommunicate me, it's your choice. You can do whatever you want, right? And that was one thing that I loved about one episode, John, you did right after your excommunication. I remember I was on the supermarket. I remember exactly what I was when I was listening on my headphones, and you said, the church, it's the church's prerogative who they keep in or they kick out. And you didn't sound mad at all. I was like, how? He should be mad. That was like, at that moment, I was sold with Mormon Stories, right? He's not an angry man.
No.
And
their club, their rules.
Exactly, right? And I've said that multiple times from what I learned from you. Yeah. And then, anyway, I go to talk with the second counselor, and I'm like, look, if it's more of the same, I don't have time for this. I have questions. Do you have answers? And he's like, no. And I think I kind of try to go in a direction of a question, and he's like, no. Let's leave those to the man with the keys, meaning the stake president. Yeah. I was like, what do keys have anything to do with, the questions about church history or anything?
They certainly don't come, those keys don't come with answers, that's for sure.
Exactly. I was like, no, this is dumb. Yeah. But anyway, I think in the end what happened was they judged that whatever damage I was making wasn't that big or wasn't in their backyard, because my audience is in Brazil, so it's not in Idaho Falls. Right. It's not their flock. Yeah. Thank you. So, and then weeks, months go by, and like not even any kind of report back on, hey, we're not going to do anything, or we will, or whatever. I reached out and like, did you guys reach a decision? And then we decided not to do anything now. I was like, cool. Thanks for letting me know.
Oh, so you weren't excommunicated?
No.
Congrats.
Yeah.
It's not fun. So,
Yeah. I don't know. I was totally planning on making it a lot of fun.
Yeah, they sent me the invitation to talk with the stake presidents. And I knew that was about that. It was like interviewing Marcelo, and I said, no, I'm not going. Nope. Mm-hmm. They don't know me. They know my name and a list of members. That's it. Yeah. They're just trying to talk to me to, I don't know, try to find information. Yeah. I didn't.
Why bother? Yeah. So, I guess a couple, as we kind of reach kind of the end-ish of this episode, I have a few questions before we end. One is just, how do you feel about how much the church meant to you in your lives, especially during those early adult years, and then all the experiences you had, including bishop, seminary teacher, relief society president, young women's president, stake president, then coming here, getting your MBA, raising your family here, just all the, I would assume, positive experiences, all the ways the church has helped and blessed your lives. You both speak English. You're probably making a lot more money than you would be in Brazil, I'm assuming. Your kids are probably getting a better education. How do you balance your gratitude to the church for the fact that now you feel like it betrayed you and lied to you and is no longer true, and you probably want other people to see that too, which then would mean other people might not have the same benefits that you had? How do you work through, and you can both answer this. How do you work through that? I would think, and it is for me, that would be really confusing. That would be really conflicting. How is it for you?
I can't count how many times people told me we have a saying in Portuguese. I don't know what the English version would be, but we say you're spitting in the plate you ate. So just meaning you're being ungrateful, right? So it's basically like someone helped me and helped you, and now you're spitting on them.
I mean, I've heard "don't poop in your nest." You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, something like that. Right. So just basically accusing me of being ungrateful, or look, so many good things church gave to you, right?
Yeah.
Especially multiple times the scholarship I mentioned that I came with to go to BYU, right? Which, by the way, it wasn't church sponsored; it was a bunch of church members.
I think, yeah.
No. It was rich church members just created this trust fund and invest the money in whatever interest they help people come to get a better education, right?
Yeah.
I was like, the amount of tithing I paid for 24 years would have paid for that multiple times over.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I'm not in debt for that. Plus, the 24 years, I worked my tail off for the church. I was happy doing so because I believed in it. But it was a lot of work. As I said, for those 7 years and a half, there was a bishop and a stake president. It was at least 20 hours a week I was giving in.
And you weren't being paid. You were paying
Right.
to serve the church.
Exactly.
And to grow and build the church.
Exactly. And then you add those 2 years as a missionary, right? And then all the other years, all the other callings I had, they all took time and effort and money and my gas driving around, right? So I don't feel like I owe the church anything. It was a mutual agreement where one side knew everything and me on the other side knew just what they wanted me to know, right? So it was not fair. That's why when I think about the covenants that I made, right, in the temple, for example, I don't feel like I broke anything because the premise upon which they were, made were true. I didn't have the full information, so the contract is nullified at that point, right, in my mind. When we started the channel, right, and people started reaching out and every week, John, every month, people reach out, hey, I'm going through this. I need to talk to someone. And I'm like, yeah, I'm available. That's my charity work now. I don't pay tithing. I don't work, volunteer for, soup kitchen or whatever, but that's my volunteer work. I donate hours to that, right, to the channel and to helping people outside of what's publicized in the channel. But anyway, so the very first time someone reached out and sent me an audio message saying, hey, thank you for what you're doing. Thanks to you, I am now leaving the church. I wasn't happy when I saw that. I was like, that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Right?
I shut down Mormon Stories when I got that first email.
Right.
For a while, I felt so terrible.
Yeah. I was like, oh, man, I don't know if this is good.
Yeah.
Of course, over time, I got over that. And because my intention is not to take anyone out of the church.
Right.
Just, you now have the information.
Yeah.
Do whatever. When people say, make comments in my videos, I know all these things and I love the church. It's like, awesome. Great. And through things that they don't know all those things, they know what the church told them in the essays or whatever, in the book Saints and all that stuff, which is not 100%, but anyway. Which is awesome as an inoculation tool, right?
Yeah.
When you're going to talk to someone, no, I already read about this. I said, no, you don't know, 10% of it.
Yeah.
And then there was one time where a serving bishop contacted me on WhatsApp, which is a popular texting app outside of the U.S. So he reached out and he's like, hey, I binge watched your videos over the long weekend, 3-day weekend, and I'm tending my resignation from the calling and from the church.
Wow.
It's like 3 days. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Let's talk about this. Let's not be, not in a hurry. Let's think about it. They're like, no. I'm pretty sure about it. And we've been in contact ever since. They're doing fine. They're doing great.
He's Brazilian?
But, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, actually, no. But
okay.
he was in Brazil. His wife is Brazilian, but he's from another country.
Got it.
But yeah, it's not like, I want to destroy the church. No.
Yeah.
And actually, it frustrates me when members get mad about what we do and what you do, and they don't realize so many changes in the right direction the church has done were because of this.
Yeah.
Right, loosening up their policies on so many things, right, and changing temple, ordinances and the covenants, and being easier on missionaries and all that stuff. Yeah, you're welcome. It wouldn't happen if people weren't talking about this, right? So I just feel like I want people to know. And so many times I've thought, you know what? I think there is enough information out there for people to make their decisions. But then people keep telling, no, don't stop, keep doing it. And, there are more stuff to talk about, and there's stories and current events and whatever, right? But what is really in my heart, the main thing that I love is the Facebook group, where you can really chat and connect. And again, back to what I said when I was released as a stake president, right, is the one individual, right? That one-on-one connection. That's what fuels me, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How about you, Sandra?
Yeah, it's like I'm still grateful for the church. It appears in a time that I need and fulfill its callings. It fulfilled its callings to me, and then same way, I paid to be there. I paid my part to be part of the LDS membership. We gave our blood, kind of, to that church. We did everything in our power. We changed without notice that we are changing. We became not so close to our family, because the church became our family and took over. And we didn't realize because we're so involved. So yes, I don't feel that I owe anything to the church. And if someone owes something, I think it's the other way around. So yeah, we when Marcelo was discovering all of this, we paid not 10% of our income. It was 11%, because 10% was the tithing, and 1% is offering, like
fast offering,
fast offering, all kinds of offerings. We have, because we have to be generous, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah. So the channel is like the same way. You don't want to destroy the church.
Yeah.
We don't want to destroy the church. We like the church. Church do good and great things. But we discovered that at the same time, it can do really bad things for some people. Right now, what bothers me about the church is because it's still trying to convince people that it's the only way to go back to God. There is no other way. And this, like, teaching itself can separate families, right? In Brazil, there are so many converts that, like me, I was the only member of the church. All my entire family is still Catholic. So it separates us from heaven, because I'm going to the celestial and my family is not going to be there, right? Yeah. Actually, I'm not going because I resignate. My name is not there, so probably I'll be in the other level.
You resigned from the Mormon Church.
I did resign.
Yeah.
So many things that happen when we send the letters for our friends. I am really emotional attached with people. I'm your friend. I'll give my love, and then I will feel your love, right? Once I was like discovering that my church friends was only church friends,
right,
and not real friends.
Yeah.
And then I discovered that probably I was going to the same way, if I had the mentality, once you're not member of my church, once you do not believe what I believe, so our friendship, it will fade.
Yeah.
So the people that answer our letters when we send, our friends that we are living, this is like, if you want to talk about, just ask. We have the channel, but we're not talking to you about it. And a lot of them said, oh, the friendship will never change.
Mm-hmm.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they no longer invite us for anything. Baptism, nope. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So it's just, they're not real friends. They are just like the church is, not real.
Yeah.
Some friends did stay, right, to be fair. But
Most
left, right?
Yeah.
We sent out like 30 letters to our closest friends. I think 2 or 3 responded something, but just like, sorry about that.
Yeah.
That was the extent of it. The friends that we still have that are members of the church, we don't talk about church stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I learned the hard way. Like the other day, a friend of mine was snowboarding with a friend, and he's saying something about church doesn't force you to do anything. I was like, well, let's not talk about, I don't want to talk about that. I purposefully avoid unless I know they're hungry for it, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, what's
That's
the
nice.
point? And Sandra was always an excellent missionary, right? She brought people to church, her sister being one, her niece. And I was never good at selling the church, right? Once you're in, man, I'll go to the moon for you and I'll take you with me. But anyway, and the same way, she's an excellent missionary after the church. So she'll talk about things.
She's a good ex-Mormon missionary.
Oh yeah, she'll talk about these things like they're nothing.
Yeah.
Right? And people get offended by that. I was like, Sandra, let's calm down. It's taboo for for them.
I
So,
didn't know. I have to learn with my mistakes because there is the way I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just
Tell the truth.
sharing what I was learning.
Yeah.
And I was not doing with everybody,
Yeah.
right? I'm not that crazy.
Yeah.
But with some people that I thought that has a open mind, then I think is not that kind so strict with church. Was
Yeah.
like more open, more flexible. Sometimes do things they're not supposed to do, and then not in a bad way. But I was like, oh, this person, this one, I can talk about it, And then we're like sharing what we're learning, and then later we discover that they're feeling not comfortable with the conversation,
Yeah,
and
we
find
learned,
a way to make us know. Yeah.
Yeah, we learned the hard way that non-compliance doesn't mean non-belief. Someone that's not living by all the rules at the church, they're wearing clothes that they're clearly not wearing garments or whatever, things like that, does not mean you can talk negative things about the church
They haven't
necessarily.
processed
Yes.
its truthfulness. They just don't like living all the standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
But
and we've known people that are like completely inactive.
Yeah.
But you don't talk bad about the church.
Right.
And that makes me feel even worse for them because I understand the pain and the guilt they're feeling because they're inactive, because they still believe.
Because they feel guilt.
They just can't,
Yeah.
live all the things that they think they should be doing, right?
Well, this is brilliant. Let me just ask you a couple super quick questions. The Brazil boasts, I think, over 1 million members, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, more than 1 million. I think it's 1.2 or something.
Okay. Just really quickly, what's your perception of the percentage of those who are actually actively attending, self-identifying, faithful members?
I would say probably between 25 and 30%, a third of the members. Well, 2/3 for sure are not active.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember there was a funny story real quick. When we were trying to create a new stake, right, when I was released as stake president, we created a new stake, and there are numbers behind that, right? And we were super good about cleaning up records, right? Everybody that we don't know where they live, we send to church headquarters as like unknown address. We don't want those records here, just clogging, whatever, when we're preparing for home teaching, whatever. And then we're submitting the papers to divide the stake, and we don't have enough records Because it's not just the number of people attending in priesthood and all that stuff. You need a certain number of records, and we didn't have enough, even though everything else, And then all of a sudden the church had some sort of contact with, credit bureau agencies, whatever. They found the last known address of all those people that were unknown address before and sent it all back to the units, right? And then, again, I have a really good understanding, at least in our area, my stake, and from talking with other stake presidents at the time, and I believe it's true for the whole country, at least 2/3 are inactive, if not more.
Yeah, my understanding is it's as low as 10 to 20% of the membership in Brazil. Yeah. Mormon church membership are actually active.
Could be.
Next question, really quick. Do you get the sense, you get the sense in the English-speaking Mormon world that people are learning about the truth claims, learning about the history, learning about becoming concerned about the treatment of women, about the racism and the LGBT stuff, and they're leaving in droves. Are Brazilian Mormons learning about these problems at the same rate as American or English-speaking Mormons? Are they leaving at the same rate? And if not, why? Why aren't Brazilian Mormons having the same level of concern as is happening here, if you know?
I would say what you need to keep in mind is, like, for example, we've been in the U.S. for, since 2009, 15 years. I have known of maybe one handful. I could count the baptisms I've seen in the wards I've been here, more than one, right? Multiple wards. Like, I could count in one hand how many converts baptized, right? So in Brazil, it's completely the opposite, right? Most people are being baptized, brought by the missionaries. And, like, they had 1 week, 2 week, exposure to the church. So they're Christian. All roads lead to Christ, right? So there isn't that strong commitment. So there's a strong number that leaves right there, right? The first year retention is awful. Those who stay, that got involved in the callings, got really embraced by the church, and the church works for them. Those are the ones that stay and are hard. Those are the ones that get hit hard when they learn the truth. Yeah. But that's right there. You already got rid of, quote unquote, got rid of, a super high percentage of people who joined. So you have a very small number left. And then the material is not available in Portuguese. Very little. Oh, we have the essays, my channel, and a handful of YouTube channels that came up after that. Yeah. And Vanya's channel, which is hers is the biggest one. So they're very limited, right? So no, people are not learning this at the same rate. And two, the ones that are members, if you did a ratio, the commitment of those who are in the church past the first year in Brazil is much, much, much higher than people here in Utah, Idaho. There is no social Mormon in Brazil because your family is not a member. You don't have a social pressure to stay. You stay because you believe, right? And when those who left in the first year is because the church didn't work for them, they don't have any reason to look back. So they're not watching my channel. They're not reading essays. They don't care, right? Church was a blip in their radar, right? So there's a very different demographics there.
Okay. And I guess I want to end by asking you guys if you feel happy now, if you've been able to find friends, if you are comfortable raising your kids. You're freaking in Idaho Falls, Ammon, Idaho, and you no longer believe the church is true, and half of the people you run into are faithful Mormons, or at least self-identifying Mormons. And by the way, the church teaches wickedness never was happiness. There's nothing more wicked than leaving the true church. Each of you just share if you're happy and how if you are, how you found happiness.
Yeah. So now is a different life, right? I have to rebuild myself because I have to deconstruct my beliefs. So I have to figure out. So in the beginning, we run everywhere. Like, where do I go, right? finding things. So at this point, I'm more comfortable not knowing, and there is no like hurry to know whatever. Now I'm learning as life is bring me. Get interest for. Right now I'm teaching my kids to be good person, good values, and we can change our mind. If a value no longer fits our family or one of my kids, we will reconsider. We'll bring new values, right? And great. I had a great time when I was in a church. I had bad times as well when I was in a church. Don't take me wrong. I have like great losses of my life because of the church. But it's in the past. I'm a new person. And also, a year ago, I just discovered that I am neurodivergent. So I have ADHD. Explain so much of my behavior, right? And and my limitations. And now I like trying to figure out who is this new Sandra with ADHD, with all my bag of knowledge that I bring to my life. It's just new things coming. And I do not have the pressure to learn more, to read every day about it, to have a testimony. I'm just learning. And not everything I'm learning will fit my life. And if I don't need to do it, there is no more pressure to be, worthy, fulfill callings, because if you do not fulfill those callings, you're not doing everything right. So there is no pressure anymore. So this for me is freedom.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I will live my life as best as I can, and I will do my best for my family, my friends, my community. Right? I'm still serving. And that doesn't need to be in a church or, I'm still serving. I serve my community. I have this new job that I love, is in a mental health hospital. I go in there. I know they pay me, but I go there and then I'm helping people to get better. That's it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Marcelo?
Oh, life doesn't stop, right? Same things that happened before continue happening, right? You have struggles, you have challenges, you have good moments, bad moments. When I reflect about not being in the church today, I feel extreme, deep happiness, right? Because now I am... The world just expanded to me so much, right? I can get anything from the whole ocean instead of being limited to a little fishbowl, right? Information, my opinions. I don't have a commitment to do something I don't agree with or that I don't believe in. There's a lot more uncertainty, and it took a while to be comfortable with that. Where am I gonna go when I die? What is right and what is wrong and why? And that's the big thing that changed, right? Is the why. Before I didn't need a why for anything, right? It's wrong because the prophet said so, right? Because the scriptures say so. Now it's like I really need to think about it, right? From a personal perspective, from a community perspective. Why is it right or why is it wrong for anything, So it gives a lot of freedom, but it comes with a lot of responsibility too, right? Because I can't just plug into the matrix and follow along, right? I need to work for it. and teaching the kids those same skills, right? The kids feel free to ask more whys, right? I can't say, Heavenly Father wants you to do this. No, I need to sit down. Hey, let's talk about sex for a minute, right? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it too early? Is it too late? Or, whatever, what happens if you do, protection, all those things. And we were talking to our kids recently, preparing to come here, and we asked them, right, what changed? And our daughters said, you guys are so much lighter to talk with now, right? They feel a lot more freedom to talk to us about things, right? One time our oldest daughter had a party in our house for New Year's Eve, and a friend of hers, member of the church, brought alcohol, right? And they were all minors. And then Sandra finds half the case in our daughter's closet, and then I didn't have to explode and, oh my God, what's going to happen? She's going to hell. It's a slippery slope. No, hey, look, alcohol needs to be dealt with responsibility. We had the conversation, right? An adult conversation about it.
Yeah.
Where her friend had not that for sure. And she had to hide from her parents don't even know that it even happened, right? And so, it's been a much more open relationship with the kids. And we can talk about anything without, it has to be this way. No, let's figure it out how it's going to be for us.
Mm. So bullet answer, healthier marriage now or before? Marcelo?
Now.
Healthier marriage now, Sandra?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Better mental health now or when you were Mormon? Marcelo?
Now.
Now? Sandra?
I don't know.
Okay.
This is a trick question.
Yeah, that's good.
Because with this getting out of the church, and all the findings, and it's just messed my head.
Yeah.
It's brought me a lot of stress. I have to figure out for myself. Mm-hmm. My ADHD doesn't have helping Marcelo is more like, how can I say, logical.
Yeah.
And for me is take more
that's
time.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay.
And then mess up my head.
Yeah.
Greatly.
Oh, thanks for being honest. Mm-hmm. Better parents now or before? Marcelo?
Definitely now. As I said, more open, more willing to listen.
Sandra?
Yes, definitely now.
Better friends now or before when you were Mormon? Marcelo?
I would say more authentic now.
Friends?
Mm-hmm.
Sandra?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, more authentic for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's supportive because we have a great group of friends in Idaho Falls. Right?
Well, a really fun memory I have is coming to Ammon and meeting your friend group. Uh-huh. What a great friend group there. There's a lot of great post-Mormon stuff going on in Idaho Falls.
Yes.
Yeah, and because of this work, I would say work we do with the channel, with the group, we have this we create a new community.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
We lost one.
But you gained.
We gained a bunch, not only one community. Because we have a ex-Mormon community, and you have the ex-Mormon Brazilians and the one that is never been in the church.
Yeah.
And they will come.
Yeah.
They will come. If you walk away from the church, you can go anywhere you want, and you'll find great people there.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so the name of the YouTube channel and the Facebook group one last time?
Mormonism sem censura.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And how many followers, subscribers do you think you have?
It's getting close to 6,000 now.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's not huge, but it's a great group.
That's great. And maybe it'll grow a little bit from this.
Yeah.
Well, keep it up, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so honored to know you. I'm so grateful for all the work you're doing. You inspire me, and I know you're helping a lot of people. So I'm just so thrilled you were willing to come and be on Mormon Stories. And I just wish you all the best, and I hope we'll stay in touch and stay close.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity, John. And
Yeah.
I hope someone out there gets helped by what we had to share here today.
They will.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. It was like really an honor
Yeah.
for me that had you as my, inspiration for the channel, the way that I said, Marcelo, to approach different because I knew you. I knew your approach. You made me listen, because if Marcelo just bring the other channels that like Vanya, in the beginning she was not so harsh, but still compared with you, super harsh. I did for a while. I watched one video of her and never watched her for months.
Yeah.
But I was watching Mormon Stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we there are lots of approaches, but the more you can try to be kind and calm and not angry, I think people are more open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
and thank you, John, for your work. Yeah. This, is a work of love.
Yeah.
It is.
It is. Yeah.
Because now that you, like in the other side, we can see people that is suffering the other side because some damage this side does.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you, John.
All right. Thanks again, Marcelo and Sandra. It's so great to have you.
Our
You guys
pleasure.
take care. And thanks for joining us today on Mormon Stories. You can always contact us at mormonstories@gmail.com. We always appreciate everyone who donates to make this possible. Thank you. And of course, if you want to donate to support Mormon Stories, you can do that at mormonstories.org, become a monthly donor. Can people donate to support you guys if they want to support what you're doing?
Yes.
How do they do that?
For the longest time, I didn't want to ask for any
Yeah,
of that
yeah.
because, it's just my volunteer work.
Yeah.
But so many channels have come and gone
Yeah.
because they don't have any kind of
Yeah.
support, and then you lose interest.
So how do people do it?
You can donate through Venmo.
Venmo.
So we can put the link
Okay.
on the description of the
But
video.
it's the same name?
I believe is the email, mormonismo sem censura,
Okay.
at gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But-
Yeah, support these guys. And that's how we keep our creators going.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again,
Yeah.
guys. Take care.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
We'll see you all again soon on another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast. Ciao. Is that how you say it in Brazil?
Ciao.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ciao.
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 Ciao. Bye, guys.
Bye.